It's okay, you can walk in here.
Rich, we call that a target rich environment. Yeah.
No, I'm like that.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, you look good. You guys beats? Is that the... No, not beats. Yeah, well, can we just for fun, can we cut your sleeves off? You look like Bill, cut me off. No, your sleeves, then you look like you're Morning.
Morning, everybody. Welcome to FedEx Day. We just want to start the morning off actually with a little prayer. Some of you know, some of you don't know. Dagmar's daughter Azusa was diagnosed with leukemia yesterday. She is inpatient at Chow getting the initial workup, but she had to let the mid-levels yesterday know so we could cover her shifts. And I just wanted to just do a little prayer. We're all here together so that we can support her and wish her the best. She's at the best hospital, so hopefully things go well. But dear Lord, please watch over Azusa and all of us today as we participate in this FedEx Day. Thank you to all those that have worked hard for this event. May we all get some rest and enjoy the event today. But a special watch out for Azusa and Dagmar and her entire family. Please let them know that we are praying for them and we have their back in this point. Amen.
I love that we are a group that supports each other. And in times like this, we tend to stick together and have no problem covering shifts. I heard that there were multiple people that throughout, she didn't even have to think about that. So I wanted to start with some thank yous before we get into today's conference. The first thank you is the Wellness Committee, which consists of myself and Maggie and Emily and Joel and Julie. We have had a great time developing this committee from what started as some wellness sort of fluff, I guess you would say, in terms of how to eat right and how to do social events together and how to be well, to something that I think is more powerful, and that is how to develop us into strong clinicians, strong employees, people who care about what they're doing, and people who love what they're doing. So I thank the wellness team for the ideas that we've had and really just pulling this together. The next group I want to thank is our leadership. I think it's a thankless job, and we rarely recognize that their job is not just simply a shift and then it goes away, but that they are constantly called in all levels of the night, at all times. They are constantly preparing for multiple meetings and a lot of BS that we don't have to deal with. But most importantly, for being open-minded and for allowing us to do events like this that are integral to our culture and our success as a group. So I want to thank you all for that. And then I also wanted to thank our providers that have served for our country We have Lisa, Laura, Adrian, and Jerry, who have done combined experience of over 40 plus years of service to our country, putting their lives at danger and their families at danger. So we thank you for that. And finally, I want to thank you all for coming today. This is your off time. We realize that trying to struggle work-life balance is one of our biggest problems. Some of you worked late last night and are not yet awake. Some of you worked overnight, and some of you have a shift after this. And we recognize that it took a lot to come here today. And we thank you for recognizing how integral it is to have you engaged in this group. With that, I will introduce our speaker today. Dr. Drew Lawson. It's okay if we call you Drew. He has been working with in California for over 17 years in the emergency department, very high volume trauma regional medical center. He knows what we go through. He was recognized on ASAP, that's how I found him, as somebody who has an expert niche in wellness coaching. He not only coaches physician providers, nurses, APPs, he also coaches executives and corporations. I'm very excited to have him talk for us today. And his trivia point that I didn't put on there was he was a scholarship athlete at Stanford University, winning 2 NCAA water polo championships, which is pretty cool stuff. So with that, I'd like to welcome Dr. Drew Lawson. We thank you for coming today.
Thanks, Denise. I think that Denise was great in tracking me down. It's really an honor and privilege to be here. And she's figuring out quickly I'm pretty easygoing. So whatever, I like an audience that's interactive with questions. Jump in, raise your hand, and we'll have plenty of interaction. So I think that's really important to keep everybody awake predominantly. But I know how you're feeling. I'm hopeful, I'm prayerful that I will make my flight tonight so that I don't miss my shift tomorrow at 5 p.m., but I'm probably going to be fine. I always like to start out with expectations. Anybody have any expectations or thoughts or things that on their mind? Things they hope to get out of this time together or anything at all?
Interaction, movie.
Any specific topics or ideas that you want to hope that we cover, and if not, be better?
Better work-life balance.
Work-life balance. I guess.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mike.
Career longevity.
Just to be able to take away something from today, 1 or 2 things that would be impactful in the short-term and long-term professionally.
Anything? Any questions? Any thoughts? Questions for me you might have?
How'd you get into this gig?
I was afraid.
I'm so
Denise
glad
wanted me.
he asked that.
She wanted me to
That's a
share the
great
story, but at dinner, you guys graciously took me out last night, and it was really wonderful. And just an epic lawsuit. An epic
Really?
lawsuit took me out. It was a 40-something-year-old guy that came in and he had a headache, but he was missing his eye, and he had major brain and sinus surgery from a cancer that was in remission. And I was the team triage doc, so he's like, "Doc, I just need dilaudid." No problem, I am dilaudid. But I, of course, the way I practice, he's going to get a head CT. He got one. He went over to our kind of fast track area in the PA. We took care of him. He felt better, and everything was about to be discharged. And then the radiologist calls and goes, "Hey, do you know about this guy? What's going on with this CAT scan?" I go, "Hold on, what name?" And then it was like, "Oh yeah, the guy missing the eye. Yeah, he's missing an eye because of surgery, blah, blah." He goes, "Well, he's got encephalomalacia, and he's got a little vacuum effect that's moving the, you know." Okay, so is it anything acute? No. Came back 5 days later, was a massive stroke and an abscess, and I went to the chief of radiology at the time. 5 days later, I happened to be at work. I go, "Hey, what happened?" And he pulled up the CAT scan and goes, "This is the worst misread I've ever seen in my career." And 2 days later, the radiologist was fired over it. Never, I mean, I've never heard of such a thing, you know, and I guess it was so egregious and so, you know, of course that's not admissible in court, it turns out. So no one could find out, the jury did. But anyway, this thing dragged on and on and on, and I've been the quality assurance director for my group for 2 decades. So I said, "Look, you guys have to review me. I mean, I can't review this." And so they all unanimously said, "You fight this thing, you're a small player in it, blah, blah, blah." Long and the short of it, we both were found negligent. The radiologist was found negligent. I was found negligent because I was the captain of the ship and I should know how to read CAT scans, even though I didn't look at the CAT scan. So ASEP got lawyers together for free for us to form an amicus brief because it was such an egregious ruling, because it potentially has implications nationwide, and judge threw that out, and lo and behold, I was owing $11.6 million. So then after 9 months of about 15 different lawyers and thinking about moving to Texas, moving to Florida, I mean, just absolute craziness. Settled the case, and then my partners wanted to sue everybody back, and at the end of the day, we got everything back. I didn't really get anything back. I mean, I think I lost a lot of emotional and a lot of stress, and I figured it out. I think I got back, you know, like $10 an hour for the thousands of hours I put into it. So it was such a crushing blow that I was at a place in my life where I was willing to probably listen to something different, and was doing a shift and grabbing lunch and eating, and they had one of those throwaway journals. And there was a little article about a physician that got into coaching. I had a friend that did executive coaching, so I called him and I looked at the article and I Googled it, and there was like one coaching class that happened to be in my hometown on the only weekend I was off the next month. So I felt like Providence was talking to me, and so I said, okay, and that was it. I just got hooked. So it was really been a great experience. Since then, I've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of training, and then I've done, I've had probably 200-300 clients. Mostly I coach executives. So C-suite type guys from all over the country. From an owner, from a guy that has 1,500 employees and owns a bunch of IHOPs and Jack in the Boxes, to a guy that owns a very large seed company in South Dakota. So it's a really eclectic group of guys, but it's a lot of fun. And a few physicians. Mostly I get referrals from troubled or disruptive physicians. But I have several physicians that aren't disruptive and actually just wanting to get, be better, be more productive, end game, career issues, stuff like that. So thanks for asking. Though I hate telling that story because it just feels so. Anybody else? Any other questions or expectations or topics that, boy, I hope we cover some of this?
We're getting more chairs and a table back here.
Oh, I didn't see that. There's one right there.
There's one right here.
In here. There are 2 chairs. You guys want to? There are 2 chairs. You want to snuggle?
I'm not sure how you put down words, but maybe how you deal with difficult patients and expectations, both patient side and from hospital administration side.
Morning.
Should just put that all different good list. All this stuff's open, so we'll just keep this flowing, and then if you have other things you think about, we can add to it. So ground rules. Anybody have any ground rules? We're going to do some interactive time, and then we're going to do some teaching time. Anybody have any ground rules that they like when they're working with each other?
Give us an example, Drew. I don't know. I'm not sure what you're asking.
No wrong answers. We're going to come out and have interactive time. There's no wrong answers. I just kind of my own ground rules, fun and easy. And the other one I like, just a convention. If we get loud and I do this, that means everybody's mouth goes closed. And it's funny to watch because most people start still talking even though their arm's up. But it's kind of a convention. If you've got a bunch of people and you're trying to do interactive stuff, then if you see the team leader, so to speak, go like this, then everybody else goes like this, and then eventually everybody quiets down. It's kind of a cool social trick. So that if you see me do this, the convention is everybody raise your hand and mouth goes closed, right? And then the other one is naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. This is a really coachy term that I learned, and I wish I'd learned it when I was younger, is so much of my hard wiring and training is that everybody's broken and I need to fix them. And so this was really revolutionary for me, is that if you look at everybody as naturally creative, resourceful, and whole, there's not something that needs to be fixed necessarily, and not everyone is broken. Maybe we're beloved. So maybe there's something more to us. And I loved that, and the example I give is in a coaching class, there was kind of a master coach talking to another person, and they got really emotional, and so several of the people wanted to go immediately over to the side and grab some tissue. And the guy said, hold on a second. If she needs a tissue, she can go get her own tissue. That's giving her that's empowering her and saying she's naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. If she needs a tissue, she'll get it. You don't have to go. So it's that idea that I do it all the time in the ER. Oh, let me help you. It's like, well, it's good to help, but be also cognizant that each of us as individuals are naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. So we may not always have, we tend in medicine to look at people as broken rather than maybe they're whole and complete, and we're just trying to help them. I hope that helps. That was a big shift in my life. Does that sink in a little bit? Seeing some nodding things, some not so much? Okay. I'm throwing this out there early because, and everybody, Denise got everybody a journal. I'm a big fan of journaling. Most of the things, almost, I would say close to all the things I'm going to tell you have been found in sociology studies, psychology studies, all these other studies, science studies on neurochemistry. We do better with journaling. And if you want to call it diary, fine. But we do better with journaling. So I went from a Mac in undergrad at Stanford to PC to Mac. So now I'm back to Mac. And so if you're a Mac person, I say you got to get day one. It's fabulous. It's a really fabulous app. It's connected to everything, and I journal all the time. I journaled last night after dinner about my experiences at dinner. I journal about things that go really great. I journal about things that don't go great. I journal about the conflict I had with the administrator the other day, or whatever it is. And it doesn't have to be this like long, typed out or drawn out thing. It's just we do better and we learn more, as we all are lifelong learners in the room because we're showing up for this, if we actually get it down on paper or type it out. I do some funky things with my journal where I have tags, and you can use Evernote too, which is free. This costs some money, but you put tags on there. So I have a review tag, and so it's articles and interesting things or interactions I had at work that didn't go as well as I wanted, I'll debrief on myself and type it up, and then once a week I will go to that tag that says review, and I'll review those entries that I thought that I wanted to get another look at. Lately I've been doing, the key things in life take your breath away, there's a quote. So every 10 days I get a reminder on my to-do list, and I journal about what are the things that took my breath away. Well, it turns out a lot of things take your breath away is when you're intubating a really stressful patient. Do you realize you don't breathe? I find myself not breathing. So it's not necessarily all the great things in life. It's sometimes the really hard things in life too that take our breath away. So I keep a journal and then I review it periodically. This thing's great because you can take pictures of your kids and great moments you've had with them, and then you can tag it with the kid's name. So periodically I meet with my kids every quarter, and I have this kind of fun meeting where I go through, look at what you've done in the last quarter, look at who you've become, look at the pictures and look at the statements and the things that are in there for you. So I keep a journal. I think it's really manly, it's really cool, so I'm all for it. And I will mention it over and over again, but that's my plug for a journal. What do we do when we see this? What's the reaction we get as medical professionals when we see the problem? Fix it, right? So is this a really stressful 2 words, or is it kind of like, yeah, baby? Right? I was thinking about this. These 2 words, to me, are pretty powerful for us because everything we did since grade school is about this. I mean, it's crazy, the training and conditioning. I mean, we condition and train longer than any other profession in the world. And the training is so regimented that everything we do is problem sets. I mean, I was doing physics problem sets as a sophomore, junior in college. I mean, I was doing problem sets in medical school for whatever it was, biology or pathology. It's all about the problem. It's all about the problem set. It's all about solving the problem. And so we get it in our heads and we're conditioned to always think that there's a problem. And so there's several things that I would love to have you take away. And one of them is creating some shifts in the way you look at the way you look and think in the world. Because one thing that's true in all of us is we have been conditioned. Dare I say, brainwashed. I mean, we have been conditioned over and over again to react in a certain way. And I really want you to keep in mind that life's not filled with problems. It's filled with dilemmas. It's filled with catch-22 situations. It's filled with things that are not a problem to be solved, but more a dilemma to be managed. I mean, how much healthier would I be in my career if I stopped looking at the EMR and the, computer order entry and all the new things that we get attacked with, and not say, this is a problem and I need to have a solution, and rather say, this is a dilemma. There's horns to the dilemma. There's 2 options, neither are really great. I need to weigh them, I need to manage them, I need to strategize on how to best address them. Because life's filled with dilemmas, it's not filled with problems. And so I think that's been really helpful for me to kind of get my head around the fact that it's not all about problems, it's a lot about dilemmas. Because what happens when we think the world's filled with problems is we do one of 3 things, right? We give up at some point. We just say, screw it, I can't do it, I can't figure it out, it's not solvable. Boom, we blow up and we get angry and frustrated. Or we say, I'm a victim, and this really sucks, and I can't believe the computer system they gave us, and it's all their fault, and we're, blah, blah, blah. And so a lot of administrators think of doctors as a bunch of whiners. And the reason being is because of this. We interpret the world as a problem, and if we can't fix it, then we complain about it. And then lastly, the third thing that we often do is we'll think, oh, it'll go away. Or kind of magic thinking, like, oh yeah, this has got to go away. I mean, it's so bad, it's got to go away. It's probably not going to go away. So I want you guys to think about that and remember that I think that the world's not filled with problems, even though we've been trained to believe that. It's filled with dilemmas that need to be managed. But I do think there is one problem when we talk about burnout, and this illustrates it, I think, in a way. Maybe.
The boys the other night.
Is that Larry?
Said I went for a beer with the boys the other night. No, I didn't get home till round about the break of light. Well, my baby was waiting for me with a frying pan. Yeah, she was waiting with that big old cast iron pan. I knew right then I'd be a dying man. Now if mama ain't happy, nobody happy. Mama ain't happy,
the name of the song, right? Mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. We in medicine have also been conditioned to believe that the patient comes first. But how well do we do on a shift when we've got major stuff going on? We don't show up the same as we do when all life is great, when it's sunny and warm outside, right? I mean, we show up as a different person. You know, we start out our shift in a not so great way. So I think the shift in medicine that we need to recognize is that we need to be here. We need to have socials, and we need to get together, and we need to connect, and we need to support each other, because if we're happy, then that's going to reflect how well we practice medicine. It's going to reflect on how happy we can make our patients. Because if my happiness scale is on a 1 to 5, a 2, I'm pretty sure that when I interact with my patients that day, they're going to get a 2, or my satisfaction score is going to be a 2. And so we can put on a happy face, and we're really good at that. But deep down, that's a tough thing. And so I think it's important to realize that we have to kind of come first. When I was a lifeguard, ocean lifeguard and rescue, the first thing they taught me in training was you've got to, when you go around the jetty, when it's 6 to 10 foot swells, and you swim around the jetty, and if the swell hits you, you put your patient in front, so they get crushed by the rocks, not you. And I thought, I was 16, I was like, what in the world are you talking about? That's insanity. We need you to continue to save lives. We can't have you, I mean, he'll get scratched up and scraped up, but he'll be all right. And then you got to bring him back in. And that was that first way that I ever got the revelation, like, you know, maybe we need to switch the way we look at medicine and recognize, yes, of course, the patient comes first, but we have to be part of the equation. So anybody guess the percentage of us in the room that will experience burnout? 25? Do I hear?
75, 80.
75, 80?
What's burnout?
How do you define
You can't
burnout?
go back.
Okay,
Just
great.
tired.
So I would argue it's 100%. I would argue that everybody in the room will experience burnout at some point in their career, to some degree. Burnout statistics, 79% increase in coronary disease in those physicians that are burned out long term. 65% of sentinel events, which is the highest percentage of causes of sentinel events. You guys have sentinel events out here, same, you know, right? It's a national thing. Is breakdown in communication, which is directly linked to burnout and the way we interact with each other. This number is the number of, in the recent Medscape 20,000 surveyed physicians, this is the highest percentage of any specialty, percentage of burnout, anonymous surveys, right? This is from what group of physicians? ER. So we are at the top of the list on burnout, and this is what we get. We get 52%. You said 25%. Actually, the research is probably in that 30 to 60% range of active people actively in burnout. Now, it was a trick question. Of course, it's 100% if you have a career of 10, 20, 30 years, you're going to experience it. But constantly, according to this survey, it's about half of us are in some state of burnout at any given time. And 35% of all malpractice claims are from diagnostic errors, which are linked to burnout as well. So we're going to go through a couple things. We're going to do some burnout basics, just a few things, little touch up on like what is burnout, what does it look like, those kind of things. Then we're going to go through what happens with our conditioning that I talked about in our med school and how we respond to hot water. And then we're going to look at the days of our lives, and we're going to dissect a frog, so to speak. So the results of burnout, there's a huge list. I just threw a couple things on the slide. It's pretty devastating. I mean, the profession of medicine has the highest suicide rate of any profession in the US, at least. I don't know worldwide. So we've got a problem. You know, we hide the problem well until it's too late. So that's unfortunately, the disruptive physicians I get are pretty far down the pretty dark road. So it's kind of difficult. You know, so much better and healthier is what you guys have established and continue to establish is this this doing these things and having relationships like this, because then when somebody's struggling, they can say, hey, I'm struggling. I mean, I've worked with one of my partners for 20 years, and he finally fessed up that he's completely burned out and done and can't stand what he does. And you can see it, sure, a little bit at work. You can see it kind of the cracks a little bit, but not a lot. I mean, he holds it together pretty well. So no one else in the group knows. He calls me personally and says, hey, by the way, what can I do? How can you help me? So it's a big issue. One guy I know that has done a lot of kind of burnout research sees burnout as, as not, I kind of like it as a battery. But the reality is, I think he gives it more like a bank account. Because even if your bank account goes below 0, right, they still let you keep the account. And so you're overdrawn, but you still go below. And in reality, burnout is an extreme of stress. We all get stress. And we all may start our shifts ideally with a full tank, with a full bank account, right? But at the end of everyone's shift in this room, I guarantee you, your level of stress has, you've lowered your bank account, and it continues to lower. But burnout is when you get below this empty line. And so oftentimes we're trained, and our medical training and our experiences are, we're kind of hovering in this area just to start with. So we're actually trained and learn how to overcome burnout by just living in it. And so much of us live below this empty line. And so burnout technically isn't when you're at 0 and you can reboot, so to speak, or you can have things in your life that you do routinely that recharge your battery. But it's when your battery's down below here and you can't get above 0. That's technically kind of what burnout's going to look like. So it's kind of extreme stress piled upon extreme stress, and you can't recharge. And so I don't know if anybody in the room's ever been on vacation, where you go on vacation and then you go to your first shift, and a couple hours in you're like, I'm like stressed, or it feels like so everybody thinks vacation's the solution, but the reality is, if you don't have the tools and techniques to help recover and get your tank full, no vacation in the world for however long is going to change that. And you're going to come walking right back into your next shift and go, wow, I'm still over here. So that's really important to keep in mind. And this is kind of more technical definition of burnout done by Christina Maslow. And she broke it down into 3 categories. Since you have a journal, I'd like you to take a few minutes and open up your journal and maybe draw these and kind of think, where are your accounts right now? Where's your physical account right now? Is it in the empty burnout zone? Is it up high? Where's your emotional account? Where is it going here? And where's your spiritual account? And I'll explain spiritual account, but for now I want you to just break it out and start using it.
Like high, low?
Yeah, draw it out. You can put a percentage if you want. Like physically you feel like you're at 100%, or way at the top. You can actually schematically draw it out. Don't worry, I'm not going to let anybody share any of this stuff. Don't peek at your neighbor. It's all confidential. Keynote's running on California time. That's kind of weird. It's telling me it's 6:47 a.m. Why I was a little groggy this morning. Say what you got. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so no worry if you're not finished, because we're going to get into this more. I'm going to ask you more questions in and around this. So what she figured out, and I didn't know this, but she's a Berkeley professor now, and she married a guy named Phil Zimbardo, who was one of my professors at Stanford in a psychology class. He's famous for the prison experiments in the 80s and 70s. And she got so pissed off as a student that she she convinced him and caused him to stop these prison experiments, and then they got married. See what you learn when you study all this stuff? So anyway, the kind of pathetic thing is this is from back then. I mean, this study that she did is the only study, it's like the landmark study, but when you think about all the studies that we see and how they're repeated and checked and rechecked, we don't do a good job of looking into burnout, what it looks like, and what the issues are. But this is still kind of the gold standard, and they look at these 3 pots, and they say physical burnout is exhaustion. So if you're feeling exhausted, constantly exhausted, not able to recharge, then that's a burnout warning sign. In emotional, it's about depersonalization. So the term is compassion fatigue. And it's cynicism, sarcasm, kind of that depersonalization of the patient. It's, the patient's to blame or at fault, and is this like deaf ears? Like, we're all kind of felt this before, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Because I'm pretty good at this one. Yeah, at the end of a really crappy shift, I can get a little like, with a runny nose and a cold patient, I'm a little edgy with mom. But spiritually is really lack of efficacy. So it's like, what does this all matter anyway? It's kind of throwing your hands up like there's no purpose to this. So it turns out that women have a higher burnout rate than men. The last study, this Medscape study, was 50% women, 34% men. I don't know what to think of that, but it also turns out that in general, just in general, men specialize in this one. Men tend to do the depersonalization. That's usually the first one that they struggle with. And women tend to start with exhaustion. That's usually the one that gets them the most. And the 60-year-old guy that's a crotchety old neurosurgeon that I met last week, he's really, really depersonalized, and he's very burned out here. But no way, man. I'm saving lives. I have a purpose. I'm really a superstar. So he doesn't struggle with this. He really struggles with this, and this is kind of plus minus. But for women in medicine, the studies show typically exhaustion and I got better things to do kick in. And they actually don't see this as often, but I don't know what to make of that. That's just some interesting information. So I see the picture of burnout when I'm closing our time with burnout basics, but I have a lot more to say if you're interested after. I think it's like this. I think typically we run the boat and we don't have any holes in our boat, and we have a really wild and crazy ride at work, and water gets into the boat. And we say, no problem. End or even during the shift, we just kind of bail out some water, and we're all buoyant again. We're floating, and everything's cool. Rapids are coming. I got this. But what happens with burnout is we've got holes in our boat. And so when we have holes in our boat, we can't keep up. And so it just keeps sinking and sinking and sinking until we get to that point of below empty, and we just can't recover. So I think, does that help? That's kind of what burnout's going to look and feel like. And what we're going to do is we're going to cover, in my opinion, most of the morning is going to be about this, because I think conditioning is where it's at. If we can kind of rewire and recondition ourselves, then we're going to have more success long term in addressing burnout and managing it. And then this is going to be looking at literally a dissection of our days. What do we do during off hours when we're not at work? What do we do at work that causes stress, that doesn't cause stress, etc.? So that's how we're broken down for today. Any questions before we jump into the next area? Okay. So the next video clip I'm going to play is you can get the door prize, which we don't actually have a door prize, I don't think, if you see my lookalike in this video and remember his name in the video, you get an extra door prize. But that's not the real main reason to watch this, and it's very short, is just kind of put yourself back in those shoes. Try to remember those old days of residency and training when you're like, oh boy, just try to put yourself back into it. crazy hours. We had at Stanford, we were in charge of the Kaiser Hospital internal medicine service as hospitalists. And you could choose to do all your nights in a row. So I did 21 nights in a row with, because I knew I got like the rest of the month off. So I was like, what are you, crazy? This is easy. And so I was the night guy for 20 days, and the interns would hand you a stack of cards, and you were literally in control of about 4 floors of the hospital. And you were taking admits from the ER. And so whenever I see the hospitalist now, I just go, are you serious? And this is so easy. So anybody figure out the look-alike? Goose.
Yes.
I had different glasses back then, and I literally, I am a much better doctor than I have ever been, but back then I was highly efficient and get out of my ER if you didn't have anything really wrong with you. But patients loved me. And they literally, 9 times out of 10, they say, thank you, Dr. Green. It was awesome. That guy saved my butt so much. They call me Dr. Green all the time. Nurses would call me Dr. Green. It was like amazing. So it was great. But that video was not intended for that part, but just more for the part of just remembering how crazy it was. And we get shifts. I still get shifts like that. I used to watch this with my wife because it was kind of like a way to have her connect. And she goes, did that really happen? I go, well, no, we don't really use, I wouldn't do the endoscopy. There's a little bit. But every scenario in there I've probably experienced in some way, shape, or form. So it's a great old ER. Some of you guys are too young to know what's going on, but it's a great ER TV show. It's really great. So this is us. This is us, kicking back in the tank, right? I see us as frogs in a pot. And the pot, I am a horrible drawer, is filled with water. And maybe in high school, it's probably a nice, warm 80 degrees. That's the pool temperature usually on a good Olympic-sized pool when you're playing water polo, 80. You want around 79 or 80. And you're solving problems, right? And you're in there and you're loving life and everything's good and you're working hard and you're thinking, I think I want to be a doctor. So then you get to med school, right? And it's, now it's jumping up to 98 to 102, right? That's kind of jacuzzi temp, right? And things are getting more stressful and you're an undergrad doing all this studying, you're trying to figure things out, and I'm a bio major, and oh boy, and wow, I got a 32 on my chem final, and so it's getting stressful, but we're just managing it, and we're tough, and we figured this out. And then you get to med school, and now you're up in the 150 plus range, right? And then you get to residency, and you forget about it. Now you're bubbling over 200, and you're just about to boil. And now we live there, because we've done 8, 6, 8, 5, whatever training you've done. You're in it. Now you don't even know. How was shift, honey? Fine. How'd it go? Was it busy or stressful? No, it was good. Anybody else answer their spouse like that? It's just like it's no problem. And how many dinner parties have I gone to with all my retired rich Stanford grad friends who are saying, "Oh, you're so cool. It's so cool you work in the ER, but that must be stressful." I go, "Nah, it's not stressful." Come on, guys. We have the single most stressful job on the universe. Literally, it's right up there at the top. But we just manage it because we've been slow-boiled to experience life as this is what life's like. It's stressful, but we just live in this stress place. And we have a very short fuse to manage that stress. And we may not think that, but that's part of what we're going to do today is get more self-awareness around that, because that's the key. Be at least as interested in what goes on inside you as what happens outside. If you get the inside right, the outside will fall into place. I mentioned this to Denise, I think this is a great quote, but the idea is we want to talk about how to put a chest tube in. We want to talk about how to intubate somebody. We want to talk about how to stitch somebody up. We want to talk, and right, that's what we do. We always talk cases, or when I go to a huddle for the nurses, I want to teach them about cholecystitis and how to look for it and blah blah blah. We're good at that stuff. But we're not good at the inside part. And the inside part's where all the money is. The inside part is where we can actually change our responses to stress and change the way we look at the world and change the way we manage burnout and when we're headed that direction. So I think this is a very telling quote and really important. So the first part of our time together is really going to be focused on this. you know, this neuroplasticity idea in my med school was like, oh, after a certain age, you don't have any neuroplasticity, so you can't really rewire your brain or change your brain. You're pretty stuck with the number of neurons, and they're now dying off, and don't drink because you'll kill them all off, and blah, 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 right? Well, that's not true anymore, and they're finding out, there's a guy named Schwartz at UCLA that worked with obsessive compulsive disorder kids and adults, and he PET scanned them and got this image of an obsessive compulsive patient. Different than this one, right? And he spent 6 months doing cognitive behavioral therapy on them. And if you're interested, I read all that study on this, so it's pretty interesting stuff. But basically did therapy for them, and then he re-PET scanned them. Flipped him out. I mean, this guy was like, no way. Turns out he was kind of non-believer of anything supernatural, and this freaked him out, because he said, uh-oh. Must be a mind that controls the brain, because we can actually control our brain and change it. So there is true evidence of rewiring. We can be rewired. We can change these ruts that we're in, that we've been conditioned to be in. We can start to cool the water off that we live in. Because that's what we are. We're a bunch of fish or frogs or whatever we want to call it in water. And so when we talk about the water, like, what water? Because we just don't even recognize there is water. So this is key. I want you to know that we can actually rewire and rechange. So we have two parts of our brain that function. And most of us are functioning most of the time in this saboteur survival brain. And obviously we're wired that way when we're kids, right? Because it's like, hey, stupid, don't touch the oven, it's going to burn you, right? Have you heard that voice when you're a kid? We've all heard that voice. And we still hear it. It's really great when we're kids because it keeps us out of trouble. It keeps us alive long enough to, start to do other interesting things. But that voice continues to haunt us throughout our lives. It's a voice that when we get stressed, these little voices in our head, and we're not schizophrenic, I'm not talking about auditory hallucinations. It's voice, and if everybody's looking at me like, you're kidding me, there's no voices, but I've cursed you. From here on out, I guarantee you, you will email me or you call me and go, hey Drew, I heard the voice. And so we have these voices, for whatever reason, that are adaptive early on to protect us, but later on in life, they're a pain in the butt. And this is what we're going to talk about, because this is how we can decondition ourselves or rewire ourselves, is by recognizing these things. We all know this, the stress response. Studies more and more have shown that if you can get yourself out of the stress response, out of this part of your brain, and turn on the other receptors in other areas of the brain, medial prefrontal cortex, etc., you're actually 33% more productive and 19% more efficient. So there's tons of studies to support this, and it's really interesting. And so what we're trying to do is get ourselves out of the pot and out of this survival saboteur brain and into the sage brain. So this is us, right? Have you ever heard that on a shift? You ever heard a voice in your head? Okay, you guys are all too sleepy, and I'm going to wake you up in a second, but here's what my voices say. I've got a Spock voice in my head. It says, expressing feelings and showing emotions is a sign of a weak-minded person. I mean, when I see the highly emotional, mom because their kid has an ingrown toenail, I get real cold. I get really, it's like, what are you crazy? Emotions they don't matter. They're illogical, So, am I alone in this? Okay. I'm just checking. I'm hoping everybody's got some of these guys in their head. But so the other one I get is, oh, never mind, I'll do it myself. Like Lone Ranger, right? This isn't a team game. This is all about, I'm the ER doc, and if you can't get the urine, I'll go do it myself. Why is Dr. Lawson in room 2 putting a Foley in the patient? Because I've waited 2 hours for the 90-year-old to get cath urine, and that's the only thing I need, really. I mean, if you did that first, I'd be better off. So I'm just waiting so I can admit the patient because I know she's got urosepsis. That doesn't, I'm sharing with you audibly my voice. How about this one? I'll work harder than you. I mean, we're trained into this. I mean, I've got the added bonus of working 6 hours in the water for almost 2 decades playing water polo, so I really will work harder than you in athletics or anything. I mean, I have that mental image. That's not a bad thing. There's some 5 or 10% truth in some of these voices that's helpful, but most of it's crap. I know I'm missing something. We never leave the house, leave work and think, I know I'm missing something, right? Does that ever happen? That voice in our head that just haunts us, just keeps us awake at night, thinking, oh God, I forgot that, or I missed this, or I should have done this, right? So we all have these voices in our head. I see it as a pop-up window. My brain works like a pop-up window. So at work, this is a famous quote I heard from a cardiologist when I was in medical school. I never forgot it. This is what he always said. Doubt everything, trust no one. Everybody heard anything like that from some attending or some, really you look up to kind of guy? That's crazy. But we just take it. Yeah. Not another drug seeker, right? I just, on a given day, that just freaks me out. My antennae are up, and this is the problem. Never show weakness. Because I don't want to be emotional. Because that's like, if I lose it, then something bad's going to happen if I get tearful because I resuscitated a 20-year-old or something. This is bad, really bad. Never hear that voice, right? I actually had that. I had that audible voice the other day. It was a new nurse. I was intubating a guy that was a heroin overdose, and right before I intubated, all this vomit came up, and she was next to me, leaning over. She goes, "This is bad. This is so I literally, because I've done this, I started laughing. And I was like, you're really saying that to me. Right next to me, right in my ear. Work sucks. We've never said that, right? I'm not enough. That's my kind of moniker. That's my saboteur's #1 thing he says. I'm not enough. So this might be what my pop-up window says right now. This is going to be a waste of their time. No one is going to use this stuff anyway. They look bored. They should have put there sleep. They don't really know me. I'm such a loser. So is the laughter like at me? Or yes. Right? So I'm not the only one, right? We have these voices in our head. What's the voice saying to you? I would love for you to take a few minutes and write in your journals, what's the voice saying to you right now? And typically the voice is either going to say, I'm a loser, like me, or boy, this Drew's a loser, right? Or this circumstance really sucks, I'm so tired, this is horrible, I'm not learning anything. So that's typically what the voice will say, but the voice, if you want to take a few minutes and jot down some of the other voices I shared with you, if they resonate with you, you can put down Spock, what does Spock say to you? You can put down Lone Ranger, what does he say to you? Gladiator, what do the voices say to you? And just take a few minutes and just think about it. And I'm going to read to you some of what some voices have said in the past. See some note takers. Big note taker. See how I change it from journaling to note taking? Because I can tell some people this is too Okay. Everybody got a handout? Where are we?
Oh, yeah. I can take some of the next table.
Everybody got one?
I'll take a stack to the back.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So, maybe anybody bold enough to share what the voice says?
I will. Do I really know what I'm doing?
Do I really know what I'm doing? Yeah.
And if there's something else I'm forgetting or missing, something else I'm doing.
Yeah. Good. Are you doing enough?
Fairly certain it's just viral.
What's that?
Fairly certain it's just viral.
Yeah. Good. So this question was tweaked a little bit, but the answers are similar. The guy who wrote the book on this, that this handout's from, he asked this question to 100 CEOs of a Fortune, I think they were Fortune 100 or top 100 companies. And he got them together and he said, you know, what are the voices in your head torching you and telling you? And this is a couple of the answers they gave. I'm less of a leader than others. I'm concerned about not meeting expectations as a father and a leader. I feel that I'm an ineffective manager and a chronic procrastinator. I am worried half the time in my mind that I'm uninteresting and antisocial. I'm terrified of being alone in my life. I'm a professional failure and I've not made a difference in the world. Crazy, right? I feel that I'm living in my father's shadows. I'm terrified of being divorced and losing my family. I am rarely at peace with myself, constantly looking for more and comparing myself with others. I am self-destructive and I don't know why. I am afraid of ending up like my father, who is unloved and will die alone. So we're in this together. We're all in this together. You know, the people that are making tens and hundreds of millions of dollars and run companies like Apple and Google are thinking the same thing you are. And so we're all in this together. These voices take us out of who we really are. And they take us out all day long when we're at work. And I've cursed you because your guys are going to go to shifts today and tomorrow and go, oh my God, there's a voice. It happened with a certain patient or in a certain circumstance or when I'm tired or at a certain time of the shift. It will happen and you will recognize it. And one of the key things is to recognize it. So we're going to meet the kind of key voice, the chief voice, in my opinion, is this guy, the judge. Dale Carnegie's great book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, chapter 1 or 2 is don't criticize, condemn, or complain. That's what the judge does, right? That's the voice in our head does really, really well. And this is kind of a description, characteristics, thoughts, feelings. This is what the judge does for us. And so I want us to read about the judge. And so can you read for me the description?
Finds faults with self, others, and circumstances. Cause as much of our disappointment, anger, regret, guilt, shame, and anxiety. Activates countless saboteurs.
So activates other saboteurs, but the judge is kind of the key player. Next one, can you read that one?
Sure. So, bad yourself for past mistakes or current shortcomings. Others focuses on what is wrong with others rather than appreciation. Gets into superior comparisons. Circumstances insists a circumstance or outcome is bad rather than see it as a gift and opportunity.
What is wrong with me? What is wrong with you? What is wrong with my circumstance or this outcome?
So I say, I suck, you suck, or the circumstances suck. That's my addition to that. But feelings?
All guilt, regret, shame, and disappointment is from the judge. Much of anger and anxiety is instigated by the judge.
Okay. Really? That's a pretty powerful statement. So some of you will ask, well, this judge voice helps me. I mean, it makes sure I checks the CBC. And I say, like I said before, there's a certain percentage of us that's a good thing. There's a 5%, maybe the judge is saying, the judge gets in when it's long enough that it causes us anxiety. When we wake up in the middle of the night and hear that little voice, that's the judge. And that's what creates anxiety and stress in our lives, is listening to these voices in our head. And they're adaptive to a very little degree, but then the rest is crap. So just keep that in mind. If you're feeling anxious or stressed, I want you to question yourself and think, okay, who's showed up? What's the voice in my head saying to me? Justification-wise?
Without me pushing you, you will get lazy and complacent. Without me punishing you for mistakes, you will not learn from them and repeat them. Without me scaring you about future bad incomes, you will not work hard to prevent them. Without me judging others, you will lose your objectivity and not protect your self-interest. And without me making you feel bad about the bad outcome, you won't do anything to change it.
Judge is the master of the saboteur and the original cause of much of our anxiety, distress, and suffering. It also is the cause of much of our relationship conflict.
A bias towards noticing, exaggerating, and reacting to the negative is a central survivor strategy. It reduces our chances of being surprised and harmed by unanticipated dangers to our physical and emotional survival. Because of this key function, the judge is the universal saboteur, shared by all, regardless of circumstances or upbringing.
Isn't that last part very telling about our training? I mean, that's exactly what we look for. We're trained to see the negative. So that's why we, as professionals in this field of medicine, have a heightened, we almost have like a superhero of judges. I mean, we judge better than anybody else, and it really takes us out. And we talked about relationships and conflict. I mean, how often are we showing up to our marriages and to our relationships, and it's actually not me arguing with you, it's my saboteur saying something in my head and coming out my mouth, and you doing the same thing. So part of it is not recognizing the saboteur showed up and say, hold on. I mean, I did it the other day in the middle of the ER. My managing partner screamed and yelled because there was no mechanism in place to notify him that there was a trauma coming in, even though there was on the protocol, but it wasn't followed. And so he just screamed and yelled at the assistant nurse director and the nurse director. And they've been working together a long time, but it was ugly, you know, and so he kind of went crazy on him and got all upset and everything, and then I kind of step in and go, hey, what's going on? And she just jumps on me, just starts, I go, I feel like I'm being shit on. And she kind of laughed, and she knew that that's the phrase I use when the saboteur shows up, because if you hear should in your vocabulary, it's probably the saboteur. It's probably the judge saying that whenever you hear that voice in your head that says you should do this, you should do that, it means that you're getting should on. And so I said to her right then and there, and she kind of immediately broke down and kind of, wow, you're actually right. I was completely saboteur taken out. I mean, we were not having a productive conversation. So we debriefed right then and there in this heat of the battle, because we were able to recognize that we were not managing this conflict in a healthy way, because we were taken out by our saboteurs. And I felt mine coming on. That's why I said, you're shitting on me, because then she laughed, which was good, because I was about to, my judge was about to just lay in me. So I rescued myself by being aware that that was what's happening. So here's the deal. I want you to draw on your journal this little pie chart. I want you to give a number to where you think your judge gives you the most grief. Do you think your judge most of the time says, I suck, and says, I'm not enough, and I can never get it right? And if that's true, then give it, I don't know, 50%, or whatever you want to call it. Or does your judge often say, your judge show up oftentimes at work when you're dealing with a patient or a circumstance, and you just go, oh, that person is so X, Y, and Z? Or does your judge say, like the nurse has said, this is bad, this is bad, this is really bad? I mean, is it circumstance-based? Just think briefly and just put a little number there. I guess it would add up to 100%, right? If my math's right. So just break it into 3 percentages. And when you're done with that, I want you to stand up, and we're going to go back there, and I want you to stand in the wedge that is the highest percentage for you. That makes sense? If it doesn't, let me know. If I'm confusing you, let me know. Others, I suck, you suck, circumstances suck. So it's either I'm not enough, I suck, or no.
Put something to 51. Stay on the line.
It could be patient.
My wife brought a feast. It was,
Oh, she got pizza. She told me.
Dan Murphy, come on down.
Hell yeah.
Come on over, Dan.
What a great mix. Wow. I like it. Very balanced. When I do this, it's not always this balanced, so it's good to see.
Dan.
Okay. Don't worry, you'll get a chance. So let's hear from the I Suck group. What does the I Suck voice say to you? What's the judge in your head saying to you?
Do better. Do more.
Do more.
I should be able to deal with anything. It's my fault if I can't deal with it.
Should have seen that coming.
Not as good as you think you are.
I like be learning more and work and
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? So these guys, I'm hearing like, oh, wow.
They suck.
But I was actually hearing their compassion and saying, wow, this is a heavy place. Like if you guys, and you guys are, most of you are actually doing it right now, you may not notice, but if you were a statue representing this, what would your posture or statue look like?
Closed.
See, you had your hands closed like this, and you're leaning, right? So, hands crossed. Anybody have a different posture? What's the feeling, right? What's it? This is this, right? Anybody else have a different statue? Pose they want to show? It's kind of closed. Okay, what's the weather over here like?
Like that.
So cold and cold. Dark, is it sunny out or is it cloudy, heavy? Some of you, when you were saying the things you were saying and sharing, it was like, I felt like there's like a weight on you. You know, like you're carrying around a big bag of crap, you know, coal or something. Hey, carry this around for me. Okay. Thanks for sharing. Good. How about you guys? Do I suck? How bad have I been doing?
You've been negative. The narcissist in all of us, just because of who we are and what we do, that there's a much bigger narcissist that can beat down the judge.
Okay.
The judge is important.
Yeah.
He's there, maybe 5%. But,
Yeah.
but my voice is, I high five myself.
So your voice doesn't, your voice doesn't, you're high five yourself, but what do you say? What is the voice in your head against the other person? When does it show up, or does it show up against certain people, certain patients?
If you stopped using cocaine, maybe you'd stop having seizures.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So
if you would pick up
what's
your
the-
prescriptions,
Okay.
if you would stop minding your own business in the hood, this wouldn't happen to you.
Yeah.
What is wrong with you? Yeah, what is your problem?
I feel like at work I'm usually in that category, but I feel like much more often at home I'm in this category. So I thought
So tell me what.
my biggest percentage is probably in this.
So when you're at home, what
It's like,
happens?
well, I'm right. Whatever it is you said, that was wrong. Just fill in the blank.
Yeah, good. Okay. Anybody else? Any other circumstances, or what's the voice say? I mean,
It's a lot of the if you're not going to help yourself.
yeah.
Yeah.
Why should I help?
Right. There's no like, well, loser, or you're such a, no?
Well,
Come on.
yeah.
You're a mixed company, we can't let it out.
You mean, do we
What's-
feel that? Is that what you're saying?
what's the voice say to you when you're
Oh.
in this space and you're thinking those things?
Spas.
I've said it to many of the other providers, you know, when I retire in a few years, I'm making a T-shirt that I spent 25 years defying Darwin. My whole life is, you know, breaking down the survival of the fittest.
So do you feel that? Do you feel there? Okay, so what's the posture, or what's the statue look like if you're going to represent this without words to us?
Maybe
Or
there's the angry version. Look what you did yourself.
So the fingers, some form of a fingers happen. And what's the weather or temperature here?
Yeah, no, I'm okay. I'm comfy.
Frog in a pot? Boil in a pot? No, but there's some heat here. Maybe? I mean, I heard kind of hot and spicy, a little bit of heat. What's the weather if we were going to describe it in the weather? Is it out here, like cold and snowy, or is it?
San Diego.
San Diego? A little bit of sun out there? Okay.
It's equally lonely. I mean,
It's what?
I would say it's equally lonely,
Yeah, sure.
even if you think.
It's a different kind of loneliness,
Yeah.
but there's still that loneliness. You're walling off. You're pushing away. Yeah. Okay. Good. You guys?
Much better.
Yeah.
I just think whatever situation I'm in, most of the time, like I feel what they're saying, but most of the time it's not your fault or my fault, it's just a situation that has to be dealt with.
Right. If you can fill your prescriptions, the system allows you to. The system, or I'm not as happy because the government takes all my money that I work so hard for. And it's a circumstance that I can't fix.
It's like, you know, control what you can control, and a lot of times it's also better you than me.
Yeah, but I sense that kind of loss of control, feeling like it, so frustrating. Can't get control.
This computer will go faster.
Yeah. What's that?
It's a lot of this.
Yeah.
For sure, depending on where you work.
So what's the posture here?
Hands behind my back in my pocket. Hard to get out.
Okay, so posture's kind of hands in the pockets, kind of, what's the climate here, the weather, what's it? Overcast. Seattle. You should just name these parts of the country.
To me, this circumstances is just pure frustration. Look, a little of all of it. Really, this is the place where you sit, where you say, sometimes I'm not, maybe I could do a little better, but I wish everybody else could pick up the pace. I wish the hospital would understand our circumstances. I wish the patient would listen to me. It is, to me, this is the melting pot of all the troublesome spots, and it's an area of frustration.
Yeah.
Just can't fix it.
It's almost fatalist.
Yeah.
It's about how you deal with that. It's like, am I going to be frustrated because I can't control it?
It's really hard on yourself.
Right.
Right, but I
So-
put my frustration into the circumstance, not myself or somebody else.
Putting the pause button on that, great insights. And now I want you guys to walk around and pick another one. So if you're here, then I want you to walk and I want you to just look at circumstances and think about it and just pick one. Pick the next one that you think you really live in besides the one you chose. So move around like that. Okay, everybody situated? So, what about the self-keep? Any voices show up for you now in this space?
I just want to fix everything. Find it anymore.
So
So I'm not doing enough, is the voice that you hear?
Yeah,
I'd rather just do it on myself. I'll take all the problems.
Or the Lone Ranger,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Okay. Any,
I moved from the other group where I was thinking, why do other people make it more difficult? But then I end up here with, I should be able to deal with it.
huh, yeah. So I'm the loser because I can't deal with it.
Yeah, regardless if others make it difficult, I should still be able to.
Yeah, I'm kind of frustrated, sort of, so I want to I'll just do it myself. I'll just do it all.
She shifted her posture, you So any new postures that come up or any feeling, anything different? So I had one nurse, when I've done this before, and she, in a big, huge crowd, she goes, I asked the voice question, and she goes, I see the saboteur in the mirror every day. And I hear the voice every day when I wake up. It was really powerful. I mean, there's a lot of chatter. Some of us have more than others, but I think most of us don't recognize it as much as we can or will. And I've cursed you, but I think as we leave here today, my hope is that it sinks in and you start to go, oh my God, there it is. I mean, I talked to one of my new clients and he said, I said, what's the greatest victory since last time we talked? And he said, I was at a hockey game and my kids, I heard the voice. And I go, why is that great? He goes, because it's not me. It's not me saying that stuff. And I was able to recognize it for the first time in life and realize for the last 20 years I've been listening to this crappy voice instead of just being the same, being me and being able to show up and not listen to that crappy voice that says, wow, your kid really sucks or whatever it's saying, right? So it's really helpful. I'm hoping this is starting to sink in. How about the big crowd of other people suck? Any thoughts? What's the voice say to you guys over here?
I started out, first by myself, but as the day goes on, my tank gets more empty. I think it's turn. You know what? Now it's your fault. Now everyone's going to work and see it, frustration with your emotion or whatever. It's very short.
Yeah. And then so when you get into work, you're like, I really suck, I'm going to be late. And then as you're at work, you're like, these guys totally suck, this patient sucks. And then as you're driving away, it's like, what a crappy day. What else? Anybody else?
Why don't people just get along?
Yeah. Anybody feel the shift when you get to the space and you start to recognize the saboteur more and more, you're starting to know, holy crap, that guy's got probably a lot of saboteur chatter themselves. So the person I'm pointing the finger at is probably, there's three fingers pointing back at me, we both are struggling with the saboteur. And I think the reality is 80–90% of us are struggling with it and don't know it exists. Now you guys have the blessing of knowing, hey, there's this voice I don't need to listen to.
I think part of this area here is the frustration we all have with the self-destructive behavior.
Yeah.
That we see everything.
But see, the way you said that, that's the heart. There's a compassion there. There's a yearning for more, a yearning for better, versus the judge, which is going to say, what a freaking loser. Pull it up, get together, pull it together, whatever, So see how there's it's judge versus discernment, or versus the heart, and the heart came out with that, the way you said that. So I agree completely, but I think that there's that, we have to separate the judge voice from our other voice that's more discernment. Like, yeah, this guy's really broken, this is a real struggle. Pull it together, how can I help you? Versus, what a freaking loser, Any posture or temperature changes?
I just think it's interesting how quickly you can vacillate between the two when you're at work. You just feel yourself going. You're so frustrated with the patient. You should have just gotten there quicker, or it's just interesting.
Well, great insight, and the reason why I have you guys move around is because isn't it trippy how we work? I mean, literally, I can be here and think, I'm such a loser, I can't believe I forgot the projector, I didn't do this. And then I can walk over here in 30 seconds and immediately go, God, I remember that pain guy, he was such a jerk. How quickly our minds can shift. And I think that's part of this exercise. I want you guys to recognize, hey, you can just get up and walk across the line, and in 15 seconds you can be different. That's how easy it is. I mean, we can rewire, we can change the way we think. and it's pretty easy. Anybody else over here?
It's funny how, when you have a couple sick patients or an interesting case, you know, at the end of the day, you feel really good about what you did. And you see a lot of things that you don't feel immediately in the ER.
Right.
It's just a grind.
Yep.
Pretty low going home.
Yep. You guys? Circumstances?
It's just my tendency to like jump ahead, but it's like in circumstances I try not to get so frustrated and try to just be in the moment of that circumstance, good or bad. Like the outside work right now, it's hard because I work late. I'm nursing twins all night. I'm not sleeping, and it's like you can wish, don't worry, they're going to be sleeping through the night soon, and it'll all be fine. But then you miss the presence of them being little, you know. So it's like taking the circumstance, but really looking to all the positives, good and bad, of being in that circumstance. So same with the shift. There's going to be shitty parts of the shift no matter what, but still focusing more in on the positives of the shifts, whether you're working with friends or taking care of that sweet old lady who so actually appreciates your care, or just trying to nitpick the positives even in a shitty situation.
So beautifully said, and if you pick up on it, it's all about positive and negative. But I want you guys to start thinking about the fact that it's all energy. We have positive and negative, but the story I tell my wife when I get home is about the frickin' nut job that basically threw a chair against the window, shattered the shatterproof glass, and put it in his mouth and swallowed it. So I got to call the poison control, and I got to do a Hugh Donald series on that, right? That's the story I tell, and that's the story that the whole nursing staff and everybody in the room laugh about and talk, oh, you never know about this guy and that. That's pretty negative, but it's energy. So even the hard things in life can be a place to actually stay in it so that we can experience it. I mean, you know, grieving my mom's death was actually a pretty fulfilling part of my life, even though I wouldn't say it was positive, but it was energy. I mean, it was powerful. So, but we want to step over that, right? We want to just step in. It's got to be positive. So one thing, and we're going to get to this, but one thing about circumstances is what's the gift in it? What's the opportunity in it? And I tell you, it's really hard for my clients. You know, when somebody's got insomnia, I don't know how we got on that topic, but he would say, you know, I said, what's the gift in a sleepless night? And then he started really, oh my God, there's no gift. Let's just try it. He said, well, I get to take a nap. I'm going to treat myself to a read. And so that's what I've done with my night shifts. When I do a night shift, it's a party. Like, I know when I get up after my night shift, I'm going to treat myself to a movie or I'm going to do something fun. So there's ways around that imprint that the saboteur wants to do on our circumstances. Anybody else?
You know, I have something in this other category when, you know, we get these patients that are so difficult to take care of. And I had a patient once who came in, he was, fuck you, and screaming, the police brought him, and one of the nurses that I had him before, he broke the monitor, like the cardiac monitor, and I'm like, oh, what a jerk. Take care of him. Months later, I'm talking to my babysitter and telling her I was trying to distract her from something. And I told her about this patient, because I was actually sitting in the ER with her, and I said, I had this patient, and she said, was his name, you know, Bob Smith? And I'm like, yeah, it was. She said, that's my grandson. And he was sexually molested. I mean, it was a long story, but the end of it, he was molested by a babysitter from ages like 3 to 7. So here's this person bringing all this shit to us, and we have no idea where it's coming from. But there's a really good reason. So when I see these people that are so difficult, I always try to remind myself of her grandson and how he got there. Like, these people don't come to us in a vacuum. And so if you can stop and pull them and go, you know, I have no idea why they're treating me badly or the nurses badly, but there's something.
So I didn't get what's your name?
Rachel.
So there's Rachel. Did you hear Rachel? I mean, we can feel the energy shift, right? Rachel showed up. But Rachel doesn't always show up, right?
Right.
She started out. So remember, I mean, that was the key piece with the OCD research was, and OCD patients, they're trained, the first thing they're trained is, it's not me, it's my OCD. So you really have to separate yourself and recognize, it's not me, that's saboteur speaking. And I want to hear Rachel. And when Rachel shows up, magic shows up. But when the saboteur shows up, it's pretty crappy. I mean, we have a lot of judgment, we come up with a lot of crappy stories in our head. So it's a great illustration of the difference. So.
I think a lot of negativity, I think about our health system in general, and so like remembering to be positive, that was hard for me, so that's why initially I was like, my general inclination is to not blame the circumstance and to think you're beyond that, like you can deal with anything, you know, don't blame a circumstance for something bad, but then I find that I'm doing that all the time in my frustration with, you know, our system and, you know, all the, you know, difficulties that we experience with that patients and for ourselves in medicine and the challenges now we're facing. And so it's good to think about this not, oh, like, what could we say going on that? I never even considered that because I'm only thinking of the negative aspect of it all.
You brought up an interesting point about what's the positive of the negative. And I think for me, that morbid introspection, because I'm mostly there, I need to stand close to the line. That morbid introspection for me has allowed me to say, well, if I feel that way about myself, then the person that's in my face is probably feeling something similar. So I can go there, I stay there, come here a little bit, I can never go over there. So that, I guess that's a positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And even the saboteur voice, when you're showing up and not the saboteur, you're taking that saboteur and using it as like a Zen master and spinning it and saying, hey, I understand what the pain you're going through because I'm hearing the same voice.
Well, I don't understand, but I mean, it sort of makes sense to
Yeah, there's
me.
empathy. Yeah, there's empathy there. It's great. Okay, anybody else? So we're going to do one more switch, so go to the one you haven't been to. Okay. Selfies, what do you think?
Idiot for letting these jackasses get to me.
That is a That is the truth.
That's a really clever saboteur. They're very clever. You can really hide and sneak around. Anybody else?
That's exactly what every shift I drive.
Yeah.
Just stole my thunder.
Wow.
Yeah.
You guys are just in disguise from that group.
Well, they're transplants. It's okay. I want everybody to stand in something different just so they kind of feel it a little bit and experience it. I mean, when we started out in the pretty classic selves that were really start with the voice that says, I'm not enough over here. There were people over here that were, you know, I don't know if I heard it, but maybe I misinterpreted it, but my understanding was like, wow, these people over here are going, wow, that's tough. That's a tough gig.
I think there's something about what you said earlier too. I think you can be different people depending on, like, I have a personal one and then a professional one. Like at work, it's always someone else's fault. Sometimes in my personal life, it's my fault, but it's rare. Most time it's someone else's fault. So.
Right. So great insight. I mean, that's a great, very great insight. That's really helpful to know that there's more than one voice, and the voice breaks apart and does all kinds of other squirrely things. Anybody else? Posture here, a lot of crossed arms. Okay. You guys?
This is me at home. That's at work. At home, it's my husband's fault. It's the kids' fault. I've dealt with so much of that business today, so everybody else.
Yeah, so a really great illustration of a shift between work and life. And it's different. So the voice shows up differently in different circumstances, right?
For me, I just feel uncomfortable here. It's not to say that I
I was
don't
gonna
ever
say, I'm
make
just
those
here 'cause you
judges.
told me to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's not to say that I
That's why I didn't
don't
move to the
sometimes
fence
hear
side.
that,
I
but,
didn't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
but I mean, you can take your up pump that you see 4 times at 4 different hospitals and judge all you want, but it's like, well, I need to get it down the street.
I know, they're really chooses that.
Right, but the reason why I love that you're sharing that, it's like I'm on the edge here. I don't like this space. But recognize that there are a lot of people that do. There are a lot of people that in your lives that like this space and live in this space, and whether it's patients or administrate, everybody, everybody's got a different kind of flavor and everybody has a different lean. We all have all these saboteurs in us, but it's great for you. I mean, I hope that it helps you when you go home next year and you're going to scream at your husband, that you're going to pause and say, okay, that's not me, that's the saboteur, right? So it's helpful, I think, to kind of experience it and recognize and be compassionate for the other people that are struggling with it.
I was thinking, I don't like the idea of blaming other people, so I think consciously.
But again, it's not you,
right,
it's the saboteur.
Voice. Right, but I recognize, I think at work a lot of times, like you feel like you're having a really busy shift, and I get so annoyed by, this is something, but like nurses that are sitting around like socializing, like when you're feeling like you're working your ass off, running around, and like they may not legitimately have anything to be doing at the time, but it's like you get so angry at the idea of someone else just kind of sitting around while you feel like you're running in circles. Right, exactly. So
that's the voice.
But it's like subconscious. I think you don't realize it until you do this exercise.
So the guys who don't want to be here and think the voice is never there, think about it. It does. Maybe it is there. Maybe it does show up occasionally. Maybe there's one certain kind of patient or one certain circumstance, and you're going to be caught off guard next week and go, oh, it's with that administrator or this person or that scenario. Maybe. I don't know. Just think about it. Anything else over here?
Well, I think one reason I don't like this is I can't control this. I can control that. I can control this. I can change. I can make the circumstance change. I can be a better. I can do something more. This I have no control. So I've just realized I'm compulsive.
No, but then you're empowered to make choice here. You feel that you can make a choice here, where other people whose chief circumstance, they feel frustrated and out of control. So it's just interesting how it's the perspective you're choosing or the way you're wired. So that's interesting.
I think it's interesting to think about how I can get pulled over here. Because I may walk into a shift and we're holding 5 inpatients, and that's a circumstance. Those are the constraints on my day when I start. Then I can go in a room and I can say, well, I can still try to help this person. What can I do to help you? But then if the interaction turns south at some point, all of a sudden, okay, I think we can agree it's not my fault that you just did a bunch of crap. And that now you didn't fill your penicillin for your dental prescription.
Did you hear it? You're the saboteur.
But yeah, oh yeah, it's there. But it may start off there, but it can pull me over to this side. And it usually starts off by saying, like, I'm not necessarily starting off by blaming you, but it's definitely not my fault that you did this. So maybe circumstances of why you did it, but
he's right.
He's right.
Right.
Yeah.
But the voice change, he's not showing up to that space. I mean, he's really listening to the saboteur's taking him out. You can hear it in the way, the tone of voice, the way he's changing, the posture shift. I mean, it's subtle, but it's there. And I think that one thing I wanted to share is I have in my reminders on my iPhone, when I show up, it's so cool, the iPhone thing, you can like locate the reminder. So when I show up on campus, I get a reminder that says, beware of the saboteurs. So when I walk into work, I think about what my saboteurs are going to say to me before they show up. So it's called like preemptive strike. I'm like thinking ahead. And so just as a reminder as I walk into work, okay, what saboteurs are going to show up? How do I beat them? What do I do to help them suppress them? So, yeah. You guys, anything?
For me, it's easy to kind of hear the voices when you're in your natural spot. The other ones kind of feel like a rubber band to me because they do happen, not as frequently, but they immediately get pulled back to your natural place. So, circumstances for me, I mean, it takes a lot of them. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, waiting room full, computer go down on paper, great. And I like the sarcastic.
We call that an upgrade, actually.
So the sarcastic part of my brain is like, oh, great, let me take out my little inkwell and my feather and let's do that. And then 5 guys show up with the Zamboni machines to clean the floor. Right at the same time.
But aren't you jealous of them? I am. Every time you come around at 3, 4 o'clock,
So, but me, because of where I am, I immediately snap back to, hey, this is not what we do. You need to take care of this. You need to stay on top of everything that's going on around you. The circumstance is just a background, supposed to.
Just keep functioning, just you did 10 minutes ago, this is your job. So I immediately just pull back to where, kind of blame me, you know, you gotta do this.
Anybody else over here?
I get a really sick, twisted pleasure out of food season. I love it. I like going to work. The patients are sick, it's busy as hell, and the circumstances bug me because it's either their fault or I'll fix it up. So I don't get this.
Great. See,
I don't get
that's
this.
a great perspective. I mean, how much better would we be with that perspective? You know, most of us are like, oh, well, there's flu season, it sucks. So that's a great way of reframing it or looking at it that way. That's a kind of the antithesis of the saboteur voice would be what I would say. Okay, anybody else?
Say for circumstance, like when you walk in and the tech or the nurse walks by and goes, turn around.
Yeah.
It's gonna and like
Wow.
it's the way it is.
Did you see the waiting room? Yeah, you walk in and say, did you see the waiting room?
I have no control of this. I just pick up the first chart and get started. That does feel like a weight.
Yeah.
Drops off my shoulder.
Exactly.
It's just the way it is. That's the word.
Okay.
The guy with the waiting room looks like a little wing costume.
Ready to jump back over here?
Bathrooms are on the right when you
How do you
first
guys
walk
feel?
in.
Do you guys feel like you want a little break right now?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
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 I have a break.
Take a break.
Pretty big.
You like it?
Yes. Yes.
Maybe have to carry like 100 pounds.
Because then you're just the worst thing is have a great day. No problem. Oh, it's awesome, man. Glad you're working. You walk into that lounge where the amputation area, St. Francis, and
There's
Yeah.
You have to be
Yeah.
No, right?
Yeah, that's good. My toes were getting cold. My Raynaud's was acting up.
Awesome.
I struggle with circumstances. You gotta people after the movie. Since summer. Remember when Dave Marshall was not feeling well and they were checking in?
Was one of our she saw her all the time. So she had it bad.
And then they did that for
Years. I think about people
And why did they no, they haven't been there. They basically
but I watched it and I realized she's not a bad person. You know what I mean?
You've seen her in regular
I said it wasn't self-abuse.
She's able to make because of a car accident. A couple months ago, a year ago, got a
Okay, you ready?
I drove by the other day, I was told the local person call and make an appointment. Yeah,
This is what I do. Go back. They forget. They can't tell
much time is necessary, so you know what, we're clean, no, we have to wait an hour.
Accidentally overdosed.
Yeah.
There are pretzels with cheese and chips back there.
Okay, everybody still awake? Yeah. Ready to jump in a little more? Pre-lunch? Okay. So, the more I do these things, the slower I get, because I think that it takes some time for us to process this stuff and sink in a little bit. And I'm going to be a little repetitive, and I think that's helpful as well. You can see so far this, I don't have real complicated slides, and that's intentional. I'm going to give you a couple things that I've found have been really helpful to address or manage the saboteur voices in our head. And once again, this is the SAGE idea, the idea of stimulating certain parts of our brain that will help us to counteract what the saboteur is doing to us. Some people research this and feel, and they say that over 80% of us are running around doing what the SAGE tells us to do rather than doing what we know best or what we should be doing, you know, what, I used the should word, what we could be doing or how we could actually show up sincerely. There's some circuitry in the brain, the amygdala, I think that's Greek for almond, right? So I'll try to draw an almond, that's really pathetic. We have this concept that we're thinking creatures that feel, but we're actually feeling creatures that think, because everything goes to the amygdala. Everything from the outside world goes directly to our amygdala, and our amygdala says safe or unsafe, and if it's safe, then we can kind of head towards the happy place. If we feel unsafe, then we go to fight, flight, or freeze. And so most of the time we're in this unsafe place at work and at home, and so that's why we are driven by the saboteur, because the saboteur steps in and says all the things we've been talking about. There is a mechanism or a way, this takes like 12 milliseconds from the outside world into the amygdala. But there's another route you can take that actually gives you double the time. And you might not think that's very much time, which it really isn't. But it's enough time to actually start to rewire the way you respond to stress. And that's what we're going to get at in the next couple sessions, the next time before lunch is we're going to start to look at this. I've just named them all P's because I like that it's fun to play with, but we're going to look at Perel, Pug, and Possible. So the first one is, antidote number one is sensing reps. It's been shown to activate and rewire. So what's happening is, if you do these sensing reps, which are simply connecting to your environment in a sensory way. So all the 5 senses: smell, touch, feel, feels the same, taste, sight. You use these senses, it actually goes, it causes your brain to go this direction instead of this direction. And so what do I mean by that? Well, for our purposes, I created the idea of Perel. So every time that I hear that voice in my head that says, I suck, or boy, if you would just stop doing cocaine, or whatever your phrase that saboteurs making you say all the time in your head, I go to the Perel dispenser, which is right next to my workspace, and I just slap on some Perel, and I just sit there and let it feel the Perel absorb into my skin. Now, you guys are smirking at me, but have you ever really taken the time and paused and really, really, truly felt the coldness and the wetness and then the absorption and the whole experience? It only takes like 5 seconds. But that's what these scientists and people call a sensing rep. And so throughout the day, like right now I'm doing a sensing rep. I'm actually mentally thinking of the toes, all my 5 toes touching the ground right now in between my shoe and the floor. You can do one right now if you actually feel your butt on the chair, because you weren't until I told you to. And so if you take a few seconds, even if you're in a really stressful business meeting, and you just take this moment and you're feeling your butt on the chair. Or a lot of people will do this. They'll actually just put their fingers together underneath the table at a meeting and just feel the ridges in their fingertips for a few seconds. And these things calm this route and slow this route to the amygdala. It sounds simple and a little goofy and a little out there, right? It's, you know, the concept of mindfulness. And it keeps us really engaged and present. If you do it long enough, weird things happen. So I took it upon myself. I took a course. It was 6 weeks. And this guy who wrote this book was really into this. I read the book and I was like, oh, this is all about saboteurs. It's so cool. And as soon as I took the course with him, he was like, no, the only thing that matters is doing these stupid reps. I was like, really? This is so goofy. I don't want to do it. And I'm actually right now actively doing it with a friend of mine that quit his job because his anxiety level was so high. And another guy I know that's, what's he do for work? But anyway, and we're actually teaming up and getting a text every day, and we're talking about how many reps did you get in. And we're shooting to try to get 50 or 100 reps a day. Now, I already know what happens because I did it for 6 weeks. If you do this, if you start to do this, and it can be the Perel dispenser, it can be, I swim a lot. I swim 3 miles every other day. And I'm in the pool swimming, and the theme of the day for me was going to be sound. I was going to just play with sound. And for the first time in like 40 years of swimming, I noticed the sound that my right ear makes when I do a flip turn. It's like this gurgling, whooshing, really cool sound. I almost got emotional. I was like, wow, God's probably been whispering in my ear all this time saying, listen to this beautiful sound that I've created for you, but you've never had the presence of mind to suck it up and listen. And so if you took the rest of the day and just used sensing reps of sight, it might be pausing and really looking at the reflection from the snow. It might be really looking at your daughter's face and noticing that the freckles are here and here or whatever it might be. It's really eating, stopping and actually taking a bite of food and really taking in and what am I tasting and what does it taste like? These are all examples of sensing reps. Now, I'm a skeptic, and so I started doing this for 6 weeks. I'm like, this is ridiculous, this is goofy, this is out of my comfort zone. 6 weeks, and this Shahzad, who does the book, who I've become a friend of, he said in 4 weeks, he goes, okay, and he interviewed all the guys who were taking the class. There was a bunch of execs and then this goofy doctor, and everyone started sharing. And he goes, what are you guys noticing? Traffic doesn't bother me. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe Joe said that. That's exactly the thing that happened first. So 3 weeks in, I mean, I'm literally, I think all of us are lifting this currently with our sensing reps. And about 2 weeks in, it gets a little heavier. Now I can actually lift this. And after 6 weeks, I'm lifting this. And after a couple months now, I'm lifting maybe 10 or 15 pounds. So you're developing these sensory muscles. Traffic doesn't bother me anymore. I used to be so pissed at traffic. I mean, yelling at people, screaming. It just doesn't bother me anymore. I had like a weird, when I was 6 weeks into this, I had a weird out-of-body experience when my 17-year-old son came home past his curfew. And normally I would flip. And it was weird because it almost was like me over here talking to my wife and processing it. and saying, hey, how do we think we should best manage this, and what do you think we should say and do? And she was like, who are you? But this is, in theory, what this does to our brain, is it actually allows us to stimulate that sage part of our brain, that medial prefrontal cortex, that science has shown with meditation, that's what it does. But this is not meditation, this is mindfulness. So I hope that, I normally when I give this talk, I normally breeze right through this, but I've experienced it now since last time I gave it. It's really important stuff. So find your little rep that works good at work. For me, it's Perel. The nurse is still, there's still one nurse. It's a really old school nurse. It's really nasty patients. And she'll be over at the Perel thing going like this, go, hey, Drew. Basically saying, my saboteur is loud and clear, and I'm trying to calm him down. So she loves to tease me about it, but Perel might be the easy reminder.
Can I stop you for 1 second?
Yeah.
Ask a question about this. So the exercise is to hear the voice and then do this rep. Or it's to just do the reps all the time regardless of where you're at.
Yes.
And then later on, what's supposed to happen is the response, the fact that the response is now dulled compared, the voice isn't there anymore, is automatic, or you just learn to recognize it more quickly, shut it off, or what exactly?
Great questions. So yes to all of them. So saboteur is never going away. You're stuck with your saboteurs for the rest of your life. But they can be quieted and they can be managed. If you try to get angry and hostile at them, they don't do very well. They get bigger. But if you say, hey buddy, I hear you, that's okay, go play out in the sandbox with the other saboteurs. If you're fun and light and laugh about it, then they kind of get quieter. And if you do these reps, when you hear them show up, if you come out of a patient's room and you go, not another drug addict, and you walk out of the patient's room and you do the Perel, and instead of just slapping it on, you're like, take a second and have a moment, then you're actually wiring your brain to calm itself so that you don't respond in the same way as much. So does that help answer? Yeah. And then reps are done if you want to join the game. I mean, I basically do 50 to 100 a day, and I have a little counter, and I'm not anal about it, but I just kind of click off, like brushing my teeth, I usually give myself 5 because I don't brush my teeth like I used to. I sit there and I actually feel the toothbrush, and not every, oftentimes I'm thinking, I gotta go check my email, I gotta go do this, I gotta do that. You're right, we get 70 plus thoughts a minute, believe it or not. So I'm thinking all this stuff, but ideally I'm just feeling the teeth and the texture and really soaking it in. That's 5 reps. If you do meditate, and you meditate for 5 minutes, that's about 10 or 15 reps. So you can accumulate reps throughout the day. In a busy situation, I usually take a time out, and I will go into the little office we have, and I'll just take a couple deep breaths. That's the simplest way of kind of doing this for me. So I take a couple deep breaths, and that gives me a rep. So that's kind of how I do it throughout the day. Shooting to get about 50 or 100 reps is usually what I aim at. But using your saboteur as kind of your sensei or kind of your guru is actually perfect. That's the right way. That's a good way to do it. Anecdote number 2, which I didn't see cut off, is going pug. This is Rosie. Rosie, when we just got her, she had a fetish for toothbrush and toothpaste. So my wife would have her workout bag, and the dog would be dug deep into it and taken out and running around the room with her toothbrush in her mouth. So I couldn't resist. So I want you to get your pads of paper out. I'm going to have you watch a couple-minute video. And I want you to just write down adjectives and things that you think of or see when you watch this, all right? Any adjectives pop up in your mind? Playful. Feisty.
Engaged.
What's that?
Anxious?
Anxious?
Spooky. Mine went from avoidant to defiant.
Defiant.
I thought she looked happy.
Happy.
Persistent?
What? Persistent? Anybody get curious?
I did.
Spooky.
Anything else?
Spooky.
Spooky?
Yeah.
Stupid? Spooky what?
No, spooky.
Spooky. You are saying spooky.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Good. Anything else? This is the next one is a 4-second video of the green belt out in front of my house. Sorry, it is about 72 degrees on this day, which it is every day. And this is Rosie. This is what Rosie does. So you just drop the leash. It's my wife and our other dog. And you just drop the leash, and this is what she does. To pretty much anything, right? Any moving object she will run to with reckless abandon and lick you until, you know, she falls over dead from breathing problems. So a lot of playfulness, a lot of curiosity. I mean, you know, she's got the brain of a 2-year-old, right? So she's always like, what's that? What's going on over there? Who's that? Who's that? You know? So a lot of curiosity, a lot of playfulness. And I think to me, when I thought of this, I thought one of the great antidotes for that saboteur that says, boy, this drug person or this or that really sucks is the pug dog. And is the idea of what would it look like to go into the room and be a pug dog? Would you go like this? Or, you know, I'm just kidding. But, I mean, would you be curious? Or would you say, I'm going to go into room number 5 with the guy that I've seen a million times for alcohol overdose, and I'm going to just be a pug dog. I'm going to be curious and playful. And what does that look like? And the next video is a video that shows, I want you to hear the initial beginning of the video where the guy is actually hearing his saboteur. It's really interesting. You can kind of sense that he's listening to this voice in his head. And then through the video, as it changes, you'll see, to me, the transition of what maybe a pug dog sees if a pug dog could read and understand, like in, what's that movie when he shows up? I love that movie. Men in Black. Pug dog talks and everything, drives in the car. Okay. Is there too much light, or can you guys see okay over here? You're good? All right. So this one's about, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes. So get comfortable and take a look here. I'm hoping it'll play. You can see that pretty well. You guys might have to focus because sometimes there's going to be words on the screen that might be a little hard to see.
Kid, every time I'm pulling out, he's right there. Man, someone needs to talk to his parents if they're ever home. What is up with the traffic today? I mean, always, every day, this intersection's always crap. I hate pulling out of here. Give me some of these dumb roads. Oh, there's it. Oh. Okay, so I'm not even here. Right. You're right, lady. Princess of Parking. Sure. Take this off. Let it be considered. Oh, kidding me? Unbelievable. Oh. It's about time. Let's see, what do I want? Yeah, can I add a cookie to that order? Yeah, no problem. Yeah, no problem. You got the world. I'm sure you need your cookie. The world, your oyster. And he's serving your cookie. Thank you so much. I'll take it for you. Yeah, I'll call you, Jeff. Yeah, no problem. $3.85. And it might take a few minutes here. We've got quite a line, obviously, and thanks for your patience. Great. Yeah, great. Great for me. Win it again. Unbelievable. What? What? What is that? What in the world?
It's reading their thoughts. Can you see them? Avoids relationships for fear of pain, discontent with life, struggling with
What am I
sense of
supposed to
purpose,
do?
has never
How can I-
known
how
true
can I do anything
friendship.
about that? Can I even help with that? Oh, your copy, sir.
Fighting addiction.
I can't take this anymore. I gotta get out of here. Hey, what?
Just needs a grieving her best friend, lady that cut him off.
Hey, buddy, come here.
Thoughts?
Everyone has a story.
Everybody has a story.
A lot of things we don't observe, a lot of things around us.
Yeah, a lot of things we don't observe about things around us. Yep.
It's like what Rachel was saying about the psychotic guy. They have a lot of thoughts, we don't know, a lot of
Yeah.
circumstances.
Cool glasses, huh? Just thinking we could carry those around with us and go to work with those on. We'd be different, right? We'd probably show up more like our true selves and rather less like the saboteur. So I thought it was a great illustration of, you know, being, to me it's the combination of remembering the glasses and trying to empathize and sympathize, and being a pug dog. And we're gonna see what it's like to be. We're gonna try to be pug dogs. So, just bring up anything. Nobody says anything. Let's all stand up, and we're gonna go back over to our little area.
Sensing.
Which one?
Okay. Everybody jump over here. Join me in the judge. So remember the guy at, you know, the beginning of the video, right? What, did you hear all the voices, all the saboteur voices? Is that not a typical day for us? I mean, for me, certainly, right? lady that owns the parking lot or owns the seat, spot that I want, or how considerate of you. That's our running commentary in our heads. So when we see that chronic pain patient, we've done this, but what shows up if you're the judge when you hear that judge voice? If you would stop, if you stop using cocaine, you wouldn't have seizures. What else shows up?
How could you do this to your life?
What's that?
How could you do this to your life?
How can you do this to yourself? Yeah.
Why wouldn't have burned so many bridges, you wouldn't be in the ER.
Right.
Don't you understand what you're doing to yourself?
Yeah.
I can't fix you.
I can't fix you. What's more visceral?
How can I get this interaction over with as quickly as possible?
Yeah.
Really what's more visceral is get the hell out of my ER.
Thank you. Right.
Right. That's what we all think.
Anybody think not another X, Y, and Z? He was just here, right? Do you have it on your tracker? Does it tell you 25 visits in the last 3 months?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always.
Or your ear fall out.
Yeah.
Is this the chronic pain, like true chronic pain, or is this the drug seeker who just wants pain medicine? Because to me, they're different roads, right?
Some say they're all the same. So we're in the judge space, so they are all the same in the judge space. But you're straddling the line, and you bring up a great point. That we might have two different voices for that. My judge voice for the chronic pain is different than the guy that's the drug guy or the drug overdose or the drug abuser. But I made this slide purposely because of that. But I have the same. The judge shows up and just maybe a little different, maybe a little softer, but. Chronic pain, to me, like many of you, I don't know, to me it's similar. But it shouldn't be noticed.
Is this the severe spinal stenosis arthritic patient or the fibromyalgia patient?
Right. So a different voice shows up, right?
Different voices, yes.
And what's the posture of this judge saying you get the, what's the posture? What's it?
Folded
Show me a
arms.
pose.
Folded arms.
Folded arms, pointing fingers. You guys are too nice. Let it out. What's the real judge? It's like
For me, it's depersonalized. At this point, once I establish that you don't need to be here, your case.
Yeah.
And I need to get you out the door.
Right.
You may be expressing pain, disappointment, or frustration, but
little Spock there, right? Spock shows up and says, "I'm shutting down. I'm moving back." What if if the judge were to describe with adjectives the chronic pain patient or the drug addict, what would the adjectives show up? How would you describe the judge, being the judge? Loser. Wasteful. Demanding. Dependent. Liar. Manipulative. What's that? Yeah. Frustrating. Okay. Let's come over here on the pug side.
Can you get over there, Kenny?
No?
Afraid with all five. It's good to be in there.
Okay, I've just transformed you into pug dogs. What happens with being the pug? What do you do? What happens now with the chronic pain drug addicts?
What have we been missing?
What have we been missing?
Really? Oh, you mean like three dogs?
No, what
Be
have
the
we
pug.
been missing?
I know exactly what you're saying.
I could fix right now.
How can I make your life better?
I'm so glad it's not me.
I'm so glad it's not me.
It must be hard to try to find drugs every week for somebody.
Yeah.
Must be hard
We
to
keep trying
pay
to
for
shut you
that
down.
too.
How do you afford them?
Maybe
How do
you
you afford
didn't,
them?
maybe you didn't really lose your purpose.
How do you see it?
Yeah.
Well, there's sarcasm here, but there's laughter, right? Wasn't any laughter over here. I mean, I could try to push you over here, and I wouldn't get a lot of laughter. because there's just a darkness here. But over here, there's a lightness. It might be a little sarcastic, but so be it. There's laughter, there's curiosity, there's questions I bet you haven't asked in a long time, right? What else is, if I were the pain guy, what would the pug dog describe him as? Or what adjectives would pop up for the pug dog?
The pug dog loves everybody.
Loves everybody, no matter what they're like.
Persistent, always tries to get ducks.
Always tries to get ducks. Persistent. How would you describe how would you describe me if I were the drug addict, if you were the pug? Sad. Lonely.
Frustrated.
Frustrated. Desperate.
Chronic pain, but you're still hurting.
Still pain there.
I think the pug isn't judging, the pug's like, oh, you're wearing blue jeans.
Those are nice jeans.
Yeah.
What's that tattoo on your left arm? Tell me about
Who
that.
are you?
What does that mean? What's your story? What's your story? How'd you get here? How did this happen? Okay. Different way of saying that than what's your problem? Or why you're here now? Or what's your story? He said it differently, right? He said it pug-like. What's your story? You know? Maybe he's sitting down, he's saying that. Or maybe he's saying, hey, what's this, you know, like I said, what's that tattoo about? You know, that's an interesting tattoo. Totally changes, right? I mean, I do that all the time. And I don't mean to equate tattoo use with drugs, but, and I've got to really, but the reality is finding the story. You know, what's the story behind it? What's going on here? Making a connection here. That's a pug dog move, right? Okay, this is my favorite part. What's the pug dog move, right? Give me a posture. Are we getting this on film? Where's the film? We need this on film. You know, I did this with an operating room group, and they were like this, and they were making noises, and they were doing head, you know. Because I guess pug dogs, my pug dog doesn't tilt, but a lot of them will tilt. You can YouTube this, but a lot of them will tilt. So you get 3 or 4 pug dogs in a room, and they'll all go. So think of the tilt, maybe. What is going to be the posture that will help connect you with your pug nature next time you're with the chronic pain patient or the drug addict? Think about it. Think about what that posture is going to be. It doesn't have to be like this. I mean, it can just be some subtle change in the way you are going to show up. Whether it's pulling the chair up or
I was
something.
thinking too, even though the end is still following policy and they may not get a narcotic at all, you can still have a nice interaction with the chronic pain patient, and that's what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
You don't have to have them be all pissed off and bad this and writing up this, versus going in, asking them what their story, listening to their story, and at the end still explaining that unfortunately there's nothing you can do to talk to it, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, there's multiple ways to get to the destination.
So when well, let's go sit. Sit.
Photobomb. It's going to be on the site. Don't worry.
One of my friends.
Move again. So this is what we did, right? This isn't my first rodeo. Here's the adjectives that have been accumulated. Drug addict, criminal, lazy, loser, annoying, weak, wasting time, pull it together, whiners, wishy-washy, very demanding. Sound familiar? You can add to that if you'd like. This is what the pug has come up with. Brave, a story, fun-loving, creative, compassion, love, smile, listen, empathy. Totally different group of adjectives, totally different feel and take. So one of my favorite charge nurses, who's this really, really vivacious, spunky Puerto Rican little spark plug, left to go back and be with her family in New York, and before she left, she goes, "Drew, this is the one thing I'm taking with me, is I'm going pug." And she's got a shirt under her scrubs that she wears. It says Going Pug. And she, there's a couple super users, right? You're always looking for the super user. And she's totally into it. And so one day when we were working together, she goes, Drew, I went pug on that. I just went pug. And I'm like, okay. I'm like new to this going, is that going to be good or bad? Well, what happened? And she said, well, this interaction with this doctor, and he came at me and he was just pissed, throwing instrument. Oh, actually no, it was an OBGYN in room 3, and it was, she threw an instrument across the room because she didn't have the right instrument. She was really pissed and really angry. She just, and Anna, this nurse, came in and goes, hi, I haven't met you. I'm Anna, I'm the charge nurse. And I mean, she describing this, and the other person in the room was like, God, what is she doing? And she's, I'm really curious, how can I help you? I sense you're struggling. Is there something I can do? And of course, this person is saboteured out, right? So they hear struggle, and they're like, I'm friggin' pissed, and they're screaming. And she did, I mean, can you imagine? So you have to have the preemptive strike against your saboteurs to stop and say, okay, I'm showing pug, I'm going pug. So she's like, Drew, we gotta get t-shirts, and she wanted the whole pug movement. But so every once in a while, I will be stopped in the hallway now in my hospital, and somebody will say, hey, I'm going pug, or I'm still pug, or do a little thing or something. So good reminder, and I think a great thing to keep in mind. The third and final piece of the how to manage your saboteurs is really what we've talked about already, but it's illustrating a great story about this guy that owned a really great stallion horse, some special kind of horse, and a group of bandits come and steal his horse. And so he's in a village, and all the neighbors around him come around him in community, and they say, oh my God, this is such bad news. I can't believe you lost your great horse. We're really sorry for you, and we're here for you. And the owner says the weirdest thing. He just says, who knows what's good and bad? And so things progress, and this stallion, beautiful horse comes right into the middle of the village with like 6 other horses. And so now it's a party. Now he's got all these beautiful horses. So everybody comes around the guy again and says, wow, this is amazing. Oh my gosh, you're so blessed. You've got all these horses now, and they're all so beautiful. And once again, the guy's like, I don't know. Who knows what's good and bad? And so then his son, the guy's son, jumps on one of the new horses and rides off and falls and breaks his leg. And his leg's mangled, bad news, bad problem. And everybody comes around and brings food and grieves with him and says, hey, I'm really sorry about your son. It's such horrible news. And then he does the same thing again. He's like, looks at him and goes, who knows what's good and bad? And then later on, a few weeks later, all the soldiers come through the town and knock on all the doors and take all the able-bodied boys off to war. And so once again, the neighbors come and go, wow, you're so lucky he had a broken leg and he didn't have to go to war, and it's so great. And once again, the guy says, who knows what's good and bad? And it's an old kind of, I think, I would guess, like Eastern kind of story. But I think it's a great illustration of we judge very well the circumstances. Let me rephrase that. Our judge judges the circumstances for us very well. And so we interpret our circumstances by listening to our judge voice that says, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. Instead of pausing and saying, I don't know what good and bad is, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And one step further might be, like I said before, what are the 3 blessings in this? What are the 3 opportunities in this? And I tell you, over and over again, my clients get in really bad circumstances, and they think they just hate me when I ask that, and they know it's coming. But it's a struggle, and sometimes it's very painful and difficult to look at it. But if you can find that space, it really is different. There are some opportunities. There's something there that might be a blessing in disguise or a growth thing. So, come join me one last time over into the corner. I want you to step back into your main saboteur. So if you're self, step in yourself. If you're, other, so jump back into it.
Great dance. When I was listening to that, complain about something out there.
Clicky bad, you know, maybe something
She didn't ask you to judge it, she asked you to listen.
Right, and even I'm not judging, I'm not even judging right now.
You're trying to offer.
She's pointing out facts that she's wrong.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like a friend here, turn it down. Okay. Oh, original.
Are you over there?
Okay, Corral people. What's different if you don't listen to the saboteur voice? What might change if you don't listen to that voice? Confidence.
Acceptance.
Yeah.
So some freedom.
Freedom.
Love.
Love.
Acceptance.
Acceptance. Different, huh? So if you don't hear that saboteur voice, you do your Perel reps, you do your sensing reps, we all do our sensing reps, then something else shows up, right? What's the posture in a place without the saboteur?
It's cold in here.
It's cold. Upright, right? Head up.
Looking forward.
Looking forward. Smiling. So pick one of those posture things and just embed it in your brain, and next time you hear the saboteur, step into that. Think of the adjective, whether it's love or acceptance, and then maybe just take a big breath and just say love or acceptance in your mind, and then smile or do something different than the posture you do. Because what I'm going to also curse you and bless you with is that you will start to notice that there are certain postures that are linked to these things. When I am in my other saboteur mode and my in-laws show up, I will literally be walking over here and leaning against the wall, and my wife will look and just start laughing. She's like, look at you, what are you doing? So I need my connection to my head and my heart and my physical body is, hey, Rhoda, good to see you. I'm so glad you're here. Right? I lean right in. I jump out, right? Because that's the change. So I want you guys and all of you guys to think of the posture you get in, start noticing when the saboteur voice, and I guarantee you when the saboteur voice is loudest, there's some funky posture you're doing. It might be this or something's happening. And you need to go, okay, there's a saboteur, and then transition to whatever the posture is going to be different. Okay? You guys. What's here now that you're all hugged up? What shows up now? What words or thoughts come up?
I feel like that personal space gets a lot smaller. Like you're just kind of in, you're just like approaching people more than being in your own space.
Yeah, empathy. Empathy, yeah. Yeah. Leaning in, right? Anything else? Any other adjectives or thoughts that pop in?
Ignore the negative.
Ignore the negative. Look for the
Ignorance.
positive. Yeah, ignorant. Stupid hug dog. I'm going to lick you. Right? Okay, so laughter showing up. What's the posture here? What are you going to remember today that you can go out and, I'm not being pugged, let me be pugged.
Wave your tail.
You know what, we can arrange that. We can get some tails and bring them in.
Sit on the bed next to the patient.
Yeah. So there's a different posture, right? Maybe on the chair. Right? So a different posture. So remember that and think again, same thing. You're gonna curse me or bless. You're gonna hug me or hit me, but remember that. Try to rewire that. And then you guys, circumstances, it comes to possibilities. So when you see that word instead of circumstances, what comes up for you guys?
Optimism.
Optimism.
It's balmy.
It's balmy. Like home. I mean, like my home.
Seeing the opportunities, like making the bad into good.
Right.
Sometimes choices.
Yep. Hopeful. and making opportunities. So the posture before was, we had, what's the new posture here? What would you change it to?
Like chin up.
Chin up?
down.
Yeah. What else? Anything else? What other postures are there? What, if you're going to describe a land of possibilities with a posture, the statue, what would you look like?
Relax. I drop my shoulders, take a breath.
Drop your shoulders, take a breath. You guys aren't leaning in. Lean in a little more. Keep going. You guys, what else? Would it be like this? What would it be like this? Would it be?
Probably more.
You're cold.
Inflated and eager and deflated.
Yeah. So one of my clients has taken this really to heart, and he's changed that posture in his mind and in his physical presence, and so he has shifted from this or this or this, and he's this. So literally, he doesn't necessarily want to show up into his power meetings like this. So he'll, before the meeting, he'll go into the closet or into the bathroom and just kind of go, just real quick, just go like this. So I saw him give this big speech in front of all these people, and he walked up afterwards, and I thought, that was so great, he goes, Drew. And I didn't need, that's it, it's like if we can get to here, if we can come closer, or we can lean in, or we can look at these possibilities, or be a hug, these are all things that will rewire us and change us out of that saboteur voice that's taking us out of the running and having us really show up. So, any other thoughts? Okay. All right, let's jump back in. We can take another break if you want. How are you guys feeling? Hungry?
Funny you mentioned that.
I think it's cool depending on where you're at. Snack time, or what are we doing?
At some point, I'm going to photobomb that thing right there.
You're going to do what?
Photobomb. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I'll just leave it open when you watch the whole thing and just remember.
Okay.
All right.
See what you got.
All right.
Let's go a little longer. Okay. So how do you apply this? Any thoughts on how you're going to, who said the one thing? Any thoughts on what the one thing might be for you? And this is, you can share out loud, or you can write it in your journal, or ideally you do both. But take a second here and process all the stuff. It's a lot of information, and just think, what am I going to do differently tomorrow? What do we do differently today? Is there one thing that kind of landed on you? Is it the crazy charge nurse who's going to go pug, or whatever it might be? Are you going to do sensing reps?
I think whatever your strategy is, it just has to come together with one concept. And for me, that's just being mindful. However you're going to get to the place where you're going to be mindful of triggers, of the things that bring these voices. And even being mindful of the voices themselves, being aware.
I think you're giving us a physical mechanism to get to that state, right? Like, how do you be mindful? Sort of a big concept. You're giving us a tool to get there.
Right. And whether you like it or not, it's going to show up. So I guarantee you, and I always love, no one ever emails me, it's rare, but I always love to hear the feedback, because it's like, sure enough, the light bulb's going to go on when you're screaming at your wife or you're doing something, and you're just going, damn, there's that voice. So that to me is like, I think that's a home run, is just hearing the voice. But obviously the transition to using some of these tools to rewire and to, get the voice quieter and out in the sandbox with the other voices is ideally the goal. And you've got, tons of information, and hopefully some that'll sink in, but I don't want you to get overwhelmed. I'm available 24/7. You can call me or email me or whatever if you have questions. If you have questions now, this is the time to jump in and ask me. And it's a lot of information, but you'll see your brain will start to process it and connect with it. But
I think that's the thing. I think you can have a day like that guy without the glasses and not even know you're having a day like that.
not anymore.
talked a lot about like our interactions with patients and how we're mindful of that, but to me, I think of our interactions with each other too, and how can we be like a stronger group in, you know, looking at each other with those glasses too, and trying to be more open to what's going on with each other and more supportive of each other within our group, rather than see like problems or, you know, that kind of thing in my group.
Well said. And so this gives you tools to do that, not just with your patients and with your loved ones at home, but with each other. And we're going to do some more stuff like that too, more look into that too.
I think that it's important to recognize, you know, that you first talked about burnout and where you are physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and that can change on a regular daily basis. And how, based on where, if you can recognize where you are on that day, physically I'm exhausted. So I know that my saboteurs are going to be out today. I know I need to focus on my Purell today. I need to try to put my bug face on. You know, that might, it seems like a big connection.
Beautifully said. Excellent. That's great. So take a temperature, take your own vital signs. You know, check in with yourself and see where you're at before you jump into something. That's self-awareness, that's mindfulness, that's the idea of like, you know, when I jump into conflict now, I'm still not, you know, God's gift to conflict, but I jump in a different way because I'm cognizant of, okay, I'm going into conflict now, and saboteur A and B are going to say this and this, so you're headed that way. Or I'm going into work and I'm freaking tired, you know, or whatever it might be. That's great insight.
I think that's important too. When you're prepping for work, we all usually have some sort of drive to get to the area and use that time how you want. You can make a phone call that's just going to irritate you to your mother-in-law or whatever. Put talk radio that's going to be politics and piss you off. Or put on some tunes that's going to de-stress you, or talk to a friend, or like, take that time to like reset your gauges and prep to going into it.
So great. I don't read the newspaper. I don't know what the news is. I stopped. The studies show it's a waste of your time and energy. It's total negative drag. That's just me. That's what the research says, but go to it if you love it. When I do a lot of PQ reps, when I do a lot of reps, and I'm really deep into it, and some days are better than others, I forget to turn the music on. I just sit in the car and I'm driving to work, and halfway to work I'm thinking, so great. I'm like having such a great moment just to be at peace, whether I'm praying or whether I'm just taking it all in, you know. So that's great. That's a great, important thing.
Seriously, how do you not read the paper, watch the news, and I mean, dead serious, and still be a good citizen? Like, how do you balance not dragging yourself down with being the citizen you need to be also?
Yeah. I guess I should ask how everybody's voting, you know, for Democrat or Republican, or, you know, or vote the party line. But I think that I get enough absorption from people around me, or, you know, my wife will check in and say, hey, this is what's going on. We get Time magazine, or we get, you know, some newspaper. You know, we get a little bit. I get some of it. But I used to,
You're just
at work,
careful with how much you take.
yeah, I mean, at work I used to just, you know, I'm a Fox News guy, and I used to just watch Fox News all day. Like, every time when I took my break, the TV would be on Fox News. Now, either the TV's off and I'm doing something else, which I'll share with you later, or I am watching the sports channel. And I'm not a big sports guy, but I'm doing something other than, wow, look at who's killing who, and look at, you know, it's just, and I've noticed that that's helped change, you know. But good question. Yeah, I think I'm a good citizen. I try to keep up on all this stuff. But most of the stuff I need to know, like, you know, it's time for those kind of decisions and things, I'm usually somewhat read up. Or I just call Gene, and Gene is like, you know, the most political animal in the world. I say, hey, what's the deal? What do you think of this? I got a guy. I got a go-to guy. That funnels it, you know, kind of screens it for me.
I couldn't agree more though. I used to watch like talk news, and I found it was like really stressing me out, like subconsciously. Because it's all, you know, kind of heightened drama, anxiety provoking, because that's what people like to watch and so.
It's
and I
us
realized
versus
that I
them.
just had to stop because it was like bad for me.
And you know, some of it's, if it's not a zap to you, then go for it. But I'm just pointing it out because you mentioned it. But for me, it really lessened my us versus them. I mean, I literally used to use it or listen to it so much it was us versus them. I go in and go, nurses, doctors. You know, I mean, it literally is a weird mental thing that happens. And now that I don't hear it as much, it's just less of us versus them.
Young kids help with that. You get the recite more SpongeBob.
Yeah, my favorite, right?
Right.
Oh my gosh.
I've
So brutal.
been a lot more selective with what I choose to watch, and I will stay away from things that are too opinionated. And I've talked to friends, family, and patients also who were very anxious and bring up stuff in the news. And I explained to them what I get from it, which I haven't read elsewhere, but my sort of personal theory is it's the small tribe, big tribe phenomena is that we're designed as a species to be in basically a troop.
150 people.
Max.
Yeah.
But you know, very often among smaller groups, and you have high level of awareness of the tragedies and anxieties and thoughts of those people who you are close to. But not much happens when it's 20 or 30 or 40 people, and you're able to take that in and process that. Now we're expected to be a tribe of millions, and every time there's a tragedy and a small child dies, you take that in. It affects it, but we are not designed for that. There's no way you can take that barrage of
We
negativity.
get, I mean, it's been said, we get the same amount of information in a given newspaper that somebody 100 years ago got in 100 years.
It's a good
It's
thought, it's a
staggering.
good intent. It's just impossible to be normal and function well.
It's
and
information
care
overload.
and do it at the same time and listen to that. It's just, those people who are close to that person should know, should support, should be there. I can't hear about every kid.
Yeah.
Can't.
Okay. So, is that visible now? There's a little, everybody see that? You look better. It's easier to see. Oh, yeah. So now we're headed towards the days of our lives, which I realize, I think that's like a soap opera name. So I tried to think this, I think at one point I was like, uh-oh. I think that's a soap opera name. But anyway, let's look at the frog. Let's dissect our frog. So we're going to basically, the rest of the time, we're going to look at life outside of emergency medicine and then life inside emergency medicine. So if you didn't catch on, this is us, right? You're a frog, and we're dissecting you. A little morbid, but hey, I figured that's who we are. So, top 5 things in life. What are the top 5 things you love to do in your life? If you put your life in a pie circle, what would be in it? Not medicine, outside of life. What would be in there? So, I know you're going to tell me, but write down, journal, what are the 5 things that come up for you when you hear that question? What are the 5 things that your life is comprised of? You can put more or less, I don't know. Just think of those 5, maybe those top, whatever. So I'm going to hazard a guess that some of those things that comprise the majority of your life outside of work are battery chargers, right? So some of them are going to charge your battery, and some of them are going to drain your battery. So obviously the optimal scenario is to put as many things on that list that will potentially bring charge to your battery. So I would jot down or look at that list and think, which of these do I need more of because they really charge my battery, and which of these do I need to tweak a little bit? And I'm going to proceed in the next time before lunch to talk about some proven methodologies that people have used and are tried and true to charge batteries. But if you look at yourself like a battery, think about the things that you do and your life is broken up in it, and think about where the charge is the most and where it might be the least. Okay? And then when you're done with that thought, I want you to draw a battery and put on that battery where you think you are on this little battery right now. Hopefully we're not here or here. You could put a percentage like on your iPhone, whatever, you know, just put it, just to kind of check in with yourself, a little vital sign check. Where are you at right now today at this moment?
What type of energy?
Are you at 80%, you think, capacity, just
overall,
in general?
One battery.
Yeah, one battery. Where do you think you're at? Give yourself a percentage number of charge, okay? And then, I want you to take that battery into fourths, or however you want to do it. Be creative, do whatever you want. And put yourself, give yourself a number for each of these. So, in the physical realm, are you feeling it? Like, are you at 80% physically? Is emotional, you're at 40. Mental, you're at 10. Spiritual. Give yourself a rating. Pretend each of these are a separate battery. Give yourself a little check-in about, like, where do you think you are right now? I'm going to celebrate the fact that nobody's at zero, because everybody's still got their eyes open and I think everybody's got their eyes still open. So as we go through the next stuff we're going to talk about, I wanted you to kind of think about this, because this is probably what the 4 batteries and where they're at is probably likely consistent with where your battery is normally, meaning, like, for me, physical is always pretty high, but emotional, that's not a real, like, high battery charge for me. I don't do emotional very well. So this would be the one that when we talk about emotional, I might circle and go, okay, this is one I need to maybe buff up. This one might be one that would help fill my bank account, my battery most. So I'm going to pay careful attention to that, and that might be the one thing I walk away from this part of the discussion, or mental or spiritual. Okay? So first we're going to talk about physical. Everybody's going to stand up. How many people on average, I want the people on average who sleep average 4 hours a night to sit down, because they need to.
No.
Any 4 hours a night, average? Okay.
Like, was this pre-baby though, or was like since?
Not pre-baby.
Okay, so the studies show, and they've done studies on this, that 4 hours of sleep on average is you're at kind of the legal limit of intoxication. So you're actually 4 hours of sleep, for whatever reasons, is driving under the influence, right? So it just is, that's what they're showing. Sleep is one of the factors that we totally neglect in our society. There's some guy from Harvard that's like trying to make it the third part of the triangle of, because whenever we think of fitness and physical, we think of exercise and diet and blah, blah, blah. But this is a big one. So how many people are at 6 hours? Sit down if you average 6. Okay, and for you guys, I want you to recognize that the average adult male, female, everybody needs in the window of around 8 hours, plus or minus an hour. So you're not getting enough sleep. And you will function at a higher capacity if you can push that 6 to 7, or maybe even 8. Okay, how many at 8? Come on, nobody more than 8?
Good for you. I'm like a bear.
But you're still in your 20s, right? So that's why you're still sleeping. My teenager can sleep for 16 hours straight. Okay, so at Stanford they did a study, and they had these basketball players and swimmers. They forced them to sleep 10 hours a day for 2 weeks. So they must have had, like, you know, people go to parties for them and do all the normal things they do with their life. But they had these guys do 10 hours. And they did 10 hours for 2 weeks. And lo and behold, weird stuff started happening. Their free throw percentage went up significantly. Their reflexes off the block, if they're doing swimming, you know, they jump off the block. Their flip turn speed, their recovery speed, all this weird stuff started showing up. They're like, wow, okay, sleep's a big deal. So sleep health is really important. So, and especially from our group, right? Because we do wacky things with our sleep. So if this is a part of you that needs some work, then open your journal and write, circle, or, you know, and I got all kinds of tricks and things, because this isn't, we're not alone in this. I mean, a lot of corporate guys struggle with this too. So there's some tricks and things you can do to help with sleep. But it's really important. It's a big factor of physical. So we can talk later, but that's a big piece. The next one, obviously, is fitness. I thought it was really lame to put a picture of me playing water polo because I'm so old, but this is my daughter scoring a goal in one of the games last week. I'm missing her big event tonight, but they're going to lose because they're playing the #1 team in the country, and they're probably one of the best women's high school water polo teams in history they're playing. The closest team that's gotten to them has been us, Newport Harbor, which is my alma mater in high school, and Foothill. And the closest anybody's gotten is by 5 or 6 goals. So if we can pull off, this would be the like 1980s like U.S. versus Russia game. If we can beat these guys, then it would be like the biggest thing in women's water polo in the last 10 years. Sorry, sidebar. So fitness. So let's all stand up again and play this game one more round. How many people, those of us who work out just 30 minutes, 3 days, well, how many people don't work out at all? Yeah, sit down and don't work out. Don't work out at all.
Just driving by the gym?
Got it. No
Walking
exercise
by
at all.
the gym.
Okay, so some. Okay, what about 30 minutes 3 times a week? Okay, so that's the minimum that the CDC and the cardio, heart people if you Google it, that's the minimum. It's 30 minutes 3 times a week. That's like they say, bare minimum adult. That's what you got to shoot for. How about an hour 3 days a week? Okay. And then what about an hour every day? We got 2 that do more than an hour every day?
Should be sitting. I don't know what
They do.
You guys are both doing, what are you putting in every day? Hour and a half?
10 hours a week.
So it's 7 days a week, so you're roughly...
I take a day off, but...
So 6 days a week, you're hour plus, hour and a half, yeah, okay. Yay, we should have door prizes. Like a water polo ball or something. A little mini water polo ball. It's so much more fun to throw a water polo ball. If it's a girl's ball, it's a little bit smaller. Okay, so kind of telling, right? This might be your little area of improvement. This is a big area. This one has been studied, up to wazoo, and it's really clear that your ability to make decisions, your ability to be efficient and productive is significantly enhanced by roughly an hour 3 days a week is kind of the minimum we want to shoot for. And ideally getting in a workout every day, getting it in as a habit, making it something you do, part of your routine is really important. And we are all, doctor, PA, professional medical people, so we know, right? We know it's got to be cardiovascular. As you get older, you want to do weights, and you want to start to do some resistance training, so you want to mix it up. But ideally, it's all about heart fitness, and that's going to come from some sweat, getting up a sweat, and And ideally, you know, if you're running, it's running with someone, you're able to keep a conversation going. But I can talk forever about fitness, but I think it's a really important part of the equation that we forget about, and that's a big burnout issue. It's very hard to be burned out if you're putting on that kind of hours, that kind of mileage. It's a drug. It's, you know, the perfect Prozac. Sometimes in the pool, I wish I could just take a Prozac, because I have to swim 180, I'm up to 190 laps every other day to get to my little thing. So I'm 47, I'm doing 4,700 yards every other day. Then when I get to 50, I'll do 5,000 every other day, and then I'm going to start backing down or drop dead. One or the other. I don't know why I'm doing that, just kind of crazy that way. So tomorrow's a swim day, I'm just dreading it. I'm not a big, you know, it's not my big thing, but I just do it. It's like taking a pill. So my wife will sometimes swim with her girlfriends, and then she'll pop up, she goes, how's it going? I go, it's a Dory day. You know, Dory from Nemo, just says, just keep swimming. Just keep swimming and just keep swimming. That's, most of the swimming is a Dory day, but occasionally I'll get it one day where I'm just feeling it. It feels great.
How long does it take you to swim the
Hour. Yeah. I move. I was fast. Okay. These are delicious. These are red velvet pancakes, and that white stuff is frosting. And it is so good. Where's the syrup? I don't like them with syrup. They don't come with syrup, but you can ask for syrup on the side. And these are, you have to actually, I have the inside scoop because one of my clients is an IHOP owner, so I will ask him when are they coming out, because they know they're seasonal. So you got to kind of know when they're coming out. These things are, it's ridiculous. They're so good. So how are we doing with that part of the equation? It's not my, you know, I love desserts, I love ice cream, I love cookies, you know, so I'm a carbo guy, and I kind of lean on that. However, I think the take-home message is balance. So if you have some of these and you like that as a big treat, just don't go overboard. So to me, the three things that I've read on this topic are balance, good solid breakfast, and no more 3 meals a day. They're really big. The new stuff everybody's telling, the research is little meals throughout the day is much healthier for you. So I've had several clients that have actually installed a refrigerator in their office that has, you know, an apple or nuts or something healthy, and they just, you know, at 10 a.m. they have a snack, and then at noon they have a snack, and so they're not doing these big bolus food meals. They might have a bigger bolus in the breakfast area, but in general, that's what the research is, those 3 things. So if you're not balanced, and if you're not eating smaller meals, and you know, more meals but smaller, and if you're not having a pretty good breakfast, then this might be a place for you to work on. All right? This is from the Stanford magazine, and it is all the nutritionists got together. And this is when Stanford football was, I think we were 3rd with Andrew Luck. And this is what it came out, is this is how we're so good. It's because the nutritionists got on board. And this is what the Stanford football team's regimen is. And I illustrated, because I think it's a pretty good illustration of what's up in this section. Sleep, average of 8 hours per night, a 20-minute power nap per day if possible, plenty of water, lean proteins, fruits, vegetables, grains, carbs, unsaturated fats, supplements, junk food. And kind of this, I love it. It's like a funnel, and it's probably, you know, they did it on purpose to make it look, these are the key things, and then these are the lower, less things. Now for us, ideally, right, we're not in training, so these 2 probably should be ahead of lean proteins would be my guess. Because really, the key is, as we all know, is eating these things. So if you don't like vegetables, find a way to like them. You know, my wife always asks me, like, hey, what do you want for dinner? And I gum down broccoli because it's just so good for you, but I don't really like broccoli. But if she makes cauliflower and kind of cooks it a certain way, it tastes pretty good, actually. So find your vegetable. Find your go-to vegetable. If you know, kale salads, my wife got totally into massaging kale, which just sounds really weird. But I guess if you take kale and you mix it with lemon juice and a little bit of olive oil, and you really do it and massage it with your hands and break it up a little bit, it tastes really good. Because otherwise kale's horrible. I mean, it's nasty. And you can do shakes, and you can bury spinach in anything. I mean, if you're a shake person, if you're a smoothie, like a blender person, I tell you, you can put a lot, I've experimented with this, you can put a fair amount of spinach without really losing the taste of the juices and the stuff you put in it. So just a little bit. So there's an app for this. If this is your area that you need to work on, I've tried a couple of them. I really like this one, Jawbone. It connects to your iPhone. You plug it into your iPhone. And the thing that's cool about it is it keeps all your steps, so it's a pedometer, so it keeps your activity level. If you swim, the thing's not waterproof. You can enter it into how much I just swam an hour, and it'll give you credit for that. And then you can actually take pictures or keep a diary in this of what you're eating. And the studies show when they talk about people who want to be on a diet and lose weight, that is one of the most effective and simplest things that they start everybody on is a journal. And it worked for me. I mean, maybe I could lose a little bit of weight, but I'm pretty right where I probably should be. But I did this for a while. I was like, holy crap! I had no idea that cookie from Panda Express or where is it? Panera is like 400 calories. I was like, well, I had no idea. I've never done it before, so I was like, I don't really need that cookie. It's not really that my favorite cookie. So that's an example of that. And then it does sleep too. So you can wear it while you're asleep, and it'll actually measure, because when you're in a certain part of your sleep cycle, you're paralyzed, which is kind of creepy, but true. And so you're literally, it measures the fact that you're completely paralyzed, like you're not moving at all. And in the morning, it'll tell you, when did you fall asleep? And mine's 11 minutes, and exactly 11 minutes. I did it for like 3 weeks. And it'll tell you some interesting data about your sleep cycle. So it's fun and it's pretty cool. So I would recommend that if this is your area of work. Okay, emotional. This is me most of the time. So this is probably my area of, the most growth I've had probably has been in this area. Using all those goofy I feel statements with my wife, and it's really great. A lot of fun. So stand up. Stand up and start thinking of somebody that really pisses you off. Something, someone, just be angry. So as you think of that very angry, provoking thought, just by getting you into this space, I've tumbled you successfully into that survival saboteur brain place. And I would draw your blood right now if you're really feeling it, and your blood levels of certain cortisol levels and things would have changed just by me asking you to do this. So it's phenomenal how quickly we can shift and how powerful that effect has on us emotionally. Okay? Next, I want you to do a Wonder Woman pose, Superman pose. So don't elbow each other. See, she knew exactly what I was doing. Yeah, all over it. Okay. So I think this is a TED Talk, but you can it's a Harvard Business Review article and discussion. They had women that are in corporate America do this pose, and they drew their blood, and they did the blood draw before. And by doing this pose for a little brief period of time, they lowered their cortisol levels by 10%. I mean, really? Is it that easy? I mean, that's amazing to me that just 10% lowering of that. Also increased their testosterone level by 10%. So maybe we don't want the men to do it, but for the women, it's been very effective. And so what this woman recommended is basically, go into the closet or around the corner before you go to a big meeting and get in the posture, because it does something to our physiology, and it changes the way our emotions respond to stress. And so by doing this, you're changing your emotional architecture for a brief period of time. And then this one, now you can relax, but here's this one. guys aren't playing as much, but if I played this long enough, everybody would be laughing. And what culture do you think is the worst at this? What would, in Europe, what would be a country that you would think, oh boy,
Russia.
Finland.
Further north we go, probably the worst.
What are these guys like? Where are these guys founded from? Nazi Germany, right? Stormtroopers. So the Germans suck at this, right? They're really bad at emotions. They're so bad at emotions that now they have laughter clubs. And can you imagine a bunch of stoic Germans after work going to a laughter club? And they go to these laughter clubs and they sit there and they go, hey Billy, you're up. And it's Billy's turn, he stands in the middle of the group and he just starts laughing. At nothing, just like that video, or just like that audio. Just starts laughing. And lo and behold, after 30 minutes, everybody is laughing. And so this is laughter is the greatest limbic emotional connection that you can do in the quickest amount of time. So if in doubt, and if you want to get connected, use laughter. It's very quick and very effective. So, and we know that too, right? That's what energizes us. When we put that list of life things that we do, I bet the ones that charged our battery the most had some playfulness or laughter in them. So remember that emotions can be connected through laughter is probably the quickest and easy way. You guys can sit. So the big buzzword in the kind of world of coaching now has been about emotional intelligence. And for good reason. I mean, they've got some good support that increasing our emotional intelligence is really important and effective. 90% of top performers have high emotional quotient, emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is responsible for 58% of your job performance. And then they've shown that people with higher EQ basically have more, annually on average make more money. Makes sense. This is the kind of 4 quadrants of emotional intelligence. Personal competence is what I see as self-awareness, and what I do, self-management. Social competence is social awareness and relationship management. And those are kind of the 4 quadrants. If you guys feel that this is an area that you're not, you need work on and you want to work on it, then contact me. I don't know how much the assessment is nowadays, but I've been trained in Talent Smart Emotional Intelligence. There's actually a book called Emotional Intelligence 2.0. You can buy the book actually and take the assessment. There's a free assessment. So that's probably the easiest way to do that. And in the book, it describes all these things. So if you get a low score in social awareness, then it gives you like it gives you dozens of ideas of social awareness and how to improve that. So whenever I have my scribes at work, one of the things that I remind myself to do is I say, hey, when we go into a room together, any patient room, I want you to take the temperature of the room. And they're like, what? I go, I want you to get the feel. When you walk out of the room, give me an adjective that you feel you felt there. So it's usually anxious or frustrated or whatever. But we play that game because that's a way for me to increase my social awareness, and that's one exercise you can do. When you're at a movie, if you're low at social awareness, you can watch the movie and think about the characters in the movie and think about what they're doing and how they're feeling, and that's kind of helps. It's a muscle. It's just like doing sensory reps. All these things are developable. They're developable. They're able to be developed in us. So we just have to pick out the ones that we want to work on today and in the future and start doing them. Does that make sense? That help? Okay, mental. You might think I'm mental by now. Mental is, again, stimulating the medial prefrontal cortex in this area. They've done tons of research on mindfulness and meditation and how important it is. Anybody meditate? Midwestern people that meditate? 2 hands. Anybody want to try it?
I want to try, but I can never make myself sit still long enough to do it.
Right? And okay, and then there's some sort. Anybody skeptical and like, this is too goofy, weird for me? Come on. No one's gonna fess up to that. No, I always thought it was really goofy and weird. So I've never been a big fan, but I've converted. I made the conversion. So here's what we're gonna do. I am going to read you if I can find it, I'm going to read it out loud as you close your eyes. We're going to do a 2-minute little example here. Hold on. Got too many things on my list now. Okay. So here it is. Okay. So really, it's not rocket science. When you meditate, the key thing is it's training your brain. It's, again, brain chemistry training. So as you meditate, we get on average 70 thoughts a minute. Some of us more, some of us less. But that's a lot of thoughts. So as you meditate, when you close your eyes, the goal, you can keep your eyes open too, you can walk, you can do all kinds of things. But typically you get comfortable and you start to just breathe, and you focus on your breathing. Because as you focus on your breathing, and again, a lot of these meditation things, it's like breathe at this rate, it's like just breathe comfortably, whatever comfortably is to you. And as you breathe, you're going to get these thoughts like clouds in your head. Oh, I really hate this guy. I really can't stand this lecture. Or, boy, I really got a lot more to do. Or, this is really interesting. Or, you're going to have hundreds of thoughts float around. As you see those thoughts in your mind's eye, you can kind of acknowledge they're there, maybe, or not, and just let them just float away. So it's almost like you got thought clouds in your head, and you're just kind of, as you're breathing, you're noticing them, but you're not attaching to them, and you're not judging them. You're just letting them float by. And that's it. That's it. That's all it is. And so the more you do it, the easier it gets. And so then you're more aware, you're more present, and it does all kinds of great stuff to your brain. So this I have done, and I will show you an app too that I use, and one that I just picked up that's even better. But for now, I'm going to read this out loud, and you're going to close your eyes and get comfortable. And I'll just read this, and this should be like just a few minutes. Ready? Here we go. Now we are going to breathe naturally and bring a very gentle attention to your breath. You can either bring attention to the nostrils, the abdomen, or the entire body of the breath. Become aware of in-breath and out-breath and the space in between. You can think of this exercise as resting the mind on the breath. You can visualize the breath to be a resting place or a cushion or a mattress, and let the mind rest on it very gently. If at any time you feel distracted by a sensation, a thought, or a sound, just acknowledge it, experience it, and very gently let it go. Bring your attention very gently back to the breathing. We are going to end by breathing in calm and breathing out smile. Okay, done. Is that hard? Pretty straightforward, isn't it? I love this one. I love the last part. I do that at work sometimes. I like breathe in calm, breathe out smile. It's a great reminder for me because I don't smile enough. So it's like I will get into a stressful situation, I'll just go, okay, breathe in calm, breathe out smile. I think that's a beautiful, simple, quick way of doing it. And any deep breathing you can do, even 3 deep breaths in a stressful situation, definitely is a process that helps with your clearing your mind, getting out the saboteurs, all those things. If you fall asleep when you do that, that means you need some sleep. That's fine. No big deal. Sometimes I'll set my timer and it'll be 10 minutes and it'll be like an eternity. And other times I'll set 10 minutes and I go, God, I wish I had more time. And it's just depending on the day and the mood and all that stuff. So if this is a part that you want to play with or a part that you want to think about, then I will give you 2 really cool apps. This one I just did on the plane over here. I love it. It's so cool. So this is my new favorite. I think the app, if you look at it in the App Store, is Breathe, B-R-E-A-T-H-E. And it does a cool thing because you can learn how to meditate. It'll kind of walk you through it. But it starts out with a little check-in. And it'll say, list how you feel, how you mentally feel, how your body feels right now, a little like report card. And then it'll give you some adjectives to describe where you're at. So like on the plane over here, I threw in, I checked out nervous, anxious, and worried, or you put those things. And then it gives you a prescription for a guided meditation that would link to that. So if you're really hyper stressed and anxious, it'll give you one that's kind of specific for managing that. If you're in a happy mood and everything's great, it'll give you a happy or a different kind. And so then you click it and it slides and it'll go to a guided meditation. So I did an 8-minute one and a 5-minute one on the plane, and they were great. Really simple, really great. And then if you want to do what we just did without, well, actually, what we just did was guided. If you wanted to just hear a bell and set a timer for 10 minutes, at the very bottom of the screen, when you get the app, it'll show you a place where it just says do it on your own or something. And you just press a button, it'll say timer. I did it once for like 5 minutes, and then it'll actually do that goofy like Buddhist thing, like, and then you'll do 5 minutes and boom at the end. But you could be a Christian and do this too. That was a big hard thing for me. I had to kind of transition. So, one more app. This is one I have been using called Mindfulness Daily. And this one's nice because it'll give you a reminder. You can set reminders. So in the middle of a busy shift, I'll get this reminder at 1 p.m. and it's like, check in with you. How are you feeling or something? And it's like, oh, brother. But that one's nice. It gives you guided meditations as well. And it's a great one too. So play with either one. I think they're both really, you're not going to find a better one. They're both really, really good. Okay? Last but not least. What time's lunch?
I believe 11:30.
Oh good, because I'm about ready here. Okay, spiritual. Now, you guys probably thought different about spiritual, but for me, it's really, for me, this is just thankfulness. There's a guy named Gutsky. He's from Texas. Ever heard of him? He's an ER doc in Texas. I guess he does, I read an article, throwaway journal again, read an article about him that he works like 10 shifts in the beginning of the month and then 10 shifts on the end of the following month, so he can get like 3 or 4 weeks off at a time. And he travels all over the world, and he travels to places where people have suffered. His photos are online, and they're all black and white. I subscribe to his daily picture. It's a little weird, but it's got some weird quotes about understanding suffering and everything, but pretty interesting. This guy, sorry to interject this crazy story, but this guy knocked on doors in France with an interpreter. He doesn't speak a lick of French. And knocked on doors and said, hey, do you have any secret passageways or secret World War I things you know about? And honest to God, the guy, these people let him in and said, yeah, come here. Some of these photos haven't been seen in 100 years. There's several photos. There's like a really eerie, crazy photo of, they had all these underground tunnels in World War I. All Quiet on the Western Front, great book, remember? All these crazy no man's land, underneath no man's land, underneath all the barbed wire, they had these huge living spaces. And there's this weird photo of like a bottle of wine and glasses that have never been touched in over 100 years. That he went down there with like a spelunking light and this guy and you could he could have killed himself. He could get lost down there. These tunnels are, I had no idea. And how could you pull, isn't that cool? That's such a cool story. That he would just knock on doors and some French guy go, yeah, okay, for 100 years I've had this place and I know about it and you can come and, right in my backyard. You want to come live? And he pulled it off. So now he's like National Geographic, he's got photos and so cool. This is their ER. So if you think it's bad where you're working, it could be worse. This is their underground, the German, I think it was German underground triage area for their trauma center. It could get worse. So I put that as an illustration of a cool story, but also the fact that we always think it's so bad, but we got it pretty good. And gratefulness is a really powerful spiritual connection to everything, to our world and to each other, and we don't do enough of it. And I have a thank account, and it's like a bank, not really a bank account. I have a thank account. I have a list of people that I want to thank. And once, I should do it more, but about once a month, I pull out a name from a thank account, and I write them an email or track them down. I tracked down my assistant water polo coach and my swim coach from high school. Hadn't spoken to them since high school. And I sent them emails, and I got the most, I just thank you so much. You were so instrumental in my upbringing, and I didn't have a dad, and you were, blah, blah, blah. Just laid it on. What? I don't care. These guys are like 60, 70 years old. I don't know. And I thought I'd never get a response, and they sent beautiful response. One of them called me and said, I've never had anybody call and tell me that, and just really cool stuff. And I didn't expect a response. It's therapeutic for me, and it's thanking them for what they did in my life. But there's some cool stuff that can happen from it. So I highly recommend a thank account. And the other thing I do is I do what went well, WWW. I do it with the nurses sometimes. I do it at home. I do it in my journal, remember? Talk about a journal. So in my journal, I will list 3 things that went well today. And that's something that I do. It's been shown in, they've done these weird studies with people who have clinical depression, and they measure their, whatever levels they're measuring, cortisol and serotonin, all this other stuff. And they found that just doing thankfulness, 3 things at night or whenever, but usually at the end of the day, typing in really quickly. I mean, if you're not a big journaler, don't worry about it. I'm not a big journaler. I don't sit there and write and write and write. It just, throughout the day, probably once a day or every other day, I will put something in my journal, some cool event or something I'm thankful for. And so, and you can put a tag to your journal that says gratefulness or whatever you want to name it. And so then you can pull that up and review it, and once a month or something, or every quarter when you have a date night with your spouse, you can do funky stuff like I do and pull it out and say, look what happened the last 3 months. And so thankfulness neurochemically is a really big deal. So as you can tell, I'm into it. Really start to turn the power on with that and just journal it, jot it down. It can be really simple things, really complex things. There's a really cool book that I'm reading that my daughter really thinks is cool. It's written kind of poetically, called 1,000 Gifts. And it's a woman in somewhere in the Midwest somewhere. She's got on a farm, she's got a bunch of kids, been through a lot of suffering, and she's doing this thing, 1,000 gifts, and she's keeping track of 1,000 things she's grateful for. And there's an app that the publisher put called 1,000 Gifts, and it's a free app, and you can just start submitting in your own little world on your app. Instead of a journal, you can just use that. I downloaded it because I was curious. And that's kind of fun. It's Christian-based, so just be aware if that's a deterrent or not. But I think that's a cool app and a cool concept to do 1,000. So I'm getting my daughter the book, and when she gets it, she'll arrive in the mail today or tomorrow. I'm going to talk to her about doing that challenge with her. So I'm excited about that. So this, again, is the Day 1 app. You don't have to use this one, but I'm going to emphasize journaling again before we move on. If you have questions about journaling, let me know. I'm a big fan. Okay, we can break now if you want. Now we're going to switch to life in the ER.
So lunch is actually noon. I apologize.
Okay.
Pizzas are in the oven.
Buns
how
in the
do you
oven.
want to do it? Yep.
So pausing here. Any questions? Any thoughts? People still awake? That's a good sign.
I have a question. Honestly, how do you have time to do all this stuff?
I don't. Just pick one thing out. Just pick if you.
Does your time expand if you do it?
That's a really cool question. Yes. time has, in the last 7 years, time has slowed down for me. It's been a different gig. And I was just walking the dog with my wife, and we're like, I remember those times when I was so stressed about taking the kids to the park and just going, this is so brainless. I can't like get my, you know, and just if we, as she and I both grow in this mindfulness stuff and being present, I tell you, the reps thing is just magical. I mean, I literally will look out there and just see something, just go, God, that's been there all this time? And it feels like time has slowed down. So I'm not great at it, but I really do think that there's something to it, that being fully present is, we suck at it, right? We're all overachievers. We're all jumping ahead. And if we can pause and take a breath in and stop and experience some things, I think time's kind of stands still in a way or slows down. But don't be overwhelmed by this. Just pick one thing out. If you're mentally challenged, sorry, just a joke, but if you're emotionally challenged or mentally challenged, I'm emotionally challenged, then just pick the emotional one. I mean, I have it on my journal. I have a list of the low scores I got on the emotional intelligence test, and I picked out a few things, and I just set reminders. So I remember myself, like, I got to work on this. So I make it a game. But don't get overwhelmed. Like, don't do all of these things. Just weave a couple in, and a couple at a time. And then you'll start to find time for some of it. But again, that's why I don't want you to go, oh, journaling. I don't journal that well. I have 2,000 entries in my journal, but most of them are probably 3 or 4 words. You know, it's just they're short little entries or pictures. Most are pictures. So it's not about overwhelm. It's about like focusing on a few things. The one thing. Find the one thing that you come away from today.
I have a question. How do you deal with the Debbie Downers in your day-to-day life? Like, there'll be shifts where you go in positive, but then whatever, someone's having a bad day and there's a comment about every patient or, you know, or whatever. People in your daily life that are Debbie Downer. Like, how do you not let them bring you down? Like, how do you deal with the negativity that others bring to your space?
See, now normally I would ask another question, but now I'm actually trying to wear a mentor hat instead of a coaching hat. But well, maybe I should ask a question. Do you guys have any thoughts? How do you field that one? What do you do with the Debbie Downers? They're not all named Debbie.
Put your bug face on.
It depends.
Hug.
If it's like home or work.
Depends on home or work,
Yeah,
right?
home affects me way more.
Sets you off more, it's harder?
Yep.
Like, do you have an 18-year-old son?
Yes.
18-year-old son that when he comes from home from school, you hear this beep, 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 and you think, is that the trash truck coming home to bury me in trash? Or is it actually my son's home?
The 15-year-old and the 50-year-old husband, who counts 3 times the boys.
Yes.
Who knows me? I love my husband dearly, but he's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So, if it's home, that stresses me out way more.
Right. So I'm hoping that that will be shifted a little bit in some ways after today. I'm totally with you. And the funniest thing was, my coach I had was like, he did the beeping, and I was like, that was it. So from now on, whenever my son comes home, I recognize the beeping sound and go, he's gonna flood me with crap. And I don't do well with that. I'm just, you know, I'm self-reliant, so I just like toughen up. But he's not, that's the way he is. He needs that emotional download. So my wife and I have strategized on how to manage that, and the best way to manage it is for her to kind of take the brunt initially, and then me to step into the space afterwards. Because I emotionally am a retard, so I can't handle it. So he'll flood me with all this, like, the world's ending, school sucks, blah, 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 and I will just try to fix it or get, you know, and so, no, beep, beep, beep. Step out of the way, let it all trash down, and then start leaning into him and connecting with him and finding ways to connect with him. So there's little strategies and little playful things that, you know, we all can do in different settings to try to manage the Debbie Downers. My daughter's me. And she's like, literally, we'll go to a movie and just sit in, you know, parallel. Hey, that was cool. And we'll talk, you know, intellectual stuff. And she's very much, she's not like a chick, you know. And my son is so emotionally, means he's going to be a great husband to somebody. I mean, he's just so emotional. It's cool. But it's hard for me because that's not me. I don't know if that helped. That was kind of a side tangent.
So what do you do when you're in the ED and there's a consultant that is known to be a difficult jerk on the phone and everybody faces it? So what do you specifically do? Like, do you use some of these techniques? Give us a scenario.
Well, first off, and this would be for future time together, my conflict sequence in this assessment that I use is I start with blue and I'm accommodating. So I usually respond accommodatingly and I take it personal. So it's really stressful for me to manage somebody like that. My other partners that start with red, which is get in your face and solve the problem kind of conflict, they just go, Drew, I can't wait. I just basically, I can't wait to talk to Ed because this is going to be so fun. So, he's done a great job of helping me and coaching me and reframing the way, don't take it personal. It's not personal. The guy is the way he is. You're not going to fix him with one phone conversation. So just do the best you can. Be civil, be nice, say here's what you got, and hopefully he gets enough information before you hear the click. Because the one guy in particular, I have a hospitalist that literally is like, I got a guy with a 29-year-old with this and this, click. Damn. I gotta talk fast. I gotta talk faster because it's just not working. I mean, we all have those, right? So I think you don't take it personal. You recognize the saboteurs that are showing up in the poor guy's life because he's filled with them. I mean, he's like up to here with them. And you don't let your saboteurs engage in the moment. You don't listen to the little voice saying, this guy's such a dick. Maybe just say, and then I always throw the patient safety, patient care, best for the patient, curveball. That sometimes quiets the, I'm just trying to do the best thing for the patient. Does that help? Mm-hmm. It's kind of it's a longer conversation.
So in your coaching program, one thing you do is assess kind of where you are personality-wise, and to be able to understand that helps when you go into that kind of conflict.
Yes. Ask that question during lunch or after lunch, because I'm going to touch on that, show you the power of that. But I definitely use that daily. Anything else? We got a few, we got 20 minutes before lunch. We can keep going. I'm just pausing to make sure everybody's.
Did you say there was a good book you recommended about that emotional intelligence?
Emotional Intelligence 2.0 is kind of the go-to book. It's a short read and free assessment, and then once you take the assessment, you can kind of focus on, you don't have to read the whole book, you just focus on the area that your score is lowest, and then you're good. So life in emergency medicine, before we dive deeper in, if you were to give yourself on a 1 to 10, open your journals, on a 1 to 10 scale, 10 being totally satisfied and 0 being not satisfied at all, what would you give yourself on your experience in work right now? Shouldn't take long, right? You can even draw a little 0 and 10 and put yourself on the bar graph, or however you want to design it and create it. So, with that in mind, right? Okay, harken back to the beginning earlier today. We're all conditioned. We all look at the negative. We're going to try to fix the problem. We're going to fix it. So what did we just do when we got that number? What did you look at?
That's subtracted from 10. I was like, well, I don't like
Thank
that.
you.
I don't like that. So
Right.
put it down.
Did we all do that? Did we all say, oh, I got a 4. Damn, I got a 4 and I need to get to 10. Sure. That's how we're wired, right? So if we could flip that around, I would ask that you got a 4. That's pretty awesome. You didn't get a 0. Anybody get a 0? Sorry. Anybody get a 0? I mean, okay. No one's going to admit if they got a 0. Unfortunately, most people in the room didn't get a 0 because the people that are getting 0s aren't here, which is a part of a bigger conversation, but that's the sad truth. So you guys are probably the super users because you're here.
Or working.
And you're working. Yeah, and you're probably, got high scores, but if you didn't, that's okay. But if you give yourself a 4, the first thing you think is, gosh, I got 6 more points to get to a 10. That's the way we're wired. We're conditioned. I want to decondition us. Don't do that. Don't shit on yourself. So look at the 4 or the 5 right now, or whatever number you got, and think, I didn't get a 0. And the second thought is, write down why you didn't get a 0. So take a few minutes and think about, why did you not get a 0? Why are you at a 4 or 6? Isn't that cool? Or in California you say, isn't that bitchin'? Okay. Nobody missed me, you're still working good. I'll be back in an hour. So the next thing I'm going to ask is, we're going to start talking about what are those things that give you a 4. Just assuming people got 4s, but maybe we got higher scores. Things that gave us any number at all instead of a 0.
Challenging?
What?
Challenging.
Challenging.
Flexibility.
What's that?
Flexibility.
Flexibility.
Lucrative.
Lucrative.
No homework.
These are reasons why it's not 0?
Yeah. Why'd you give yourself a 5 or 6 or whatever you get?
No call.
No call.
Enjoy taking care of sick patients.
Patient care.
Like the colleagues you work with?
What was that?
Like the colleagues?
The colleagues.
Makes you appreciate your own life.
Appreciate life. Sense of control. Sense of control.
Walk away with great stories.
Certainly great names.
Oh, God.
What was that?
Someone said you walk away with great stories, and I said certainly great names.
Oh, God.
Great names. I don't think they can beat my my classmate in high school's name, Charity Muff. Yeah, I was a gynecologist. Yeah, not kidding. I don't. That's not true, but her name, that is her name. And Beige Brown. I had a great Beige Brown.
There's a guy named Molester. She's spelled correctly.
Wow.
His name is Jimbo.
What about the guy? I had a guy with a tattoo on his back, and he's like, he takes his shoulder out and tries to reduce it, and then comes in for dilated. And he put his prodigal on the back, but misspelled. Anybody else? What else?
Energizing.
What's that?
Energizing.
Energizing.
Meaningful.
Interesting. Autonomy.
Yep.
There's relatively little delayed gratification, and that sometimes you can do something and see an actual effect. So you can reduce the shoulder, tube somebody, you can see an actual effect. You don't have to wait, years and years to see people get better.
See immediate results.
Sense of purpose.
What's that?
Sense of purpose.
Sense of purpose. So, one observation among many is if mom ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. Pretty true. Because we only got one line for patient care. Just embrace it. I mean, we want to, we're brainwashed to say it's all about the patient, but there's other things involved. And we've got to have a sense of this and understanding of all the things involved so that we can have us be healthy. Because if we're not healthy, then we're not going to be able to show up for our patients. So let's make mama and daddy happy, and then we're all going to be happier. Anybody else? Any other things? Great list. Cool stuff. Okay. Never guess where we're going now, right? Looks familiar now? Now, I guess I'm going to ask a couple questions. One of them is, what do you guys think are the... Lunch ready yet? What do you guys think are the...
Anytime we're ready. You're ready.
Everybody want to eat now and take a break?
Sure.
Yeah.
There's no margin. Right. I think that's the problem. Because here it was blasting heat. And then all of a sudden now it's blasting heat. There's no happy medium.
There's a lot more pizzas, so don't feel like you can only eat small amounts.